7, 6. All right, just a little pregame here. Check, 1, 2, 3. A little sound check. Is my mic even turning on? Yeah, there we go. Be good if anybody. What's up, Carlos? Can you hear me? We're doing sound checks right now. Little pregame sound check. Yes, thank you, Carlos. And Carlos, 2 Carloses. Are you guys together, like in the same, like, I don't know, city, country, church, or whatever? Welcome.
Hello, welcome.
What's up? Pastor Coco, you guys can hear your sound is good too. Cheddars is getting his avatar set up.
Yeah.
What's up, Oregon? What's up, John Snyder?
See if I can zoom
Brazil.
in more.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Nice. It's from Brazil. Lacey, hello. How are you? Good to see you. Coldest, are you able to?
Back.
Are you and the moderator? Can you see? Coldest here. What's up, Dan? What's up? Pastor Jate in the house.
Hello.
All right, my friends. Let's do some video checks too as well. This might try to here. Here we go. There should be music playing.
Yep, I hear it.
If you're in the audience, can you hear the music? The soundtrack. Christian, hoping your internet stream will keep it together. Yes. Oh, Jade's DJ. Look out. I like the minimalist approach. What's up, Paul? Danny, thank you. You can hear the music. Perfect. What's up, Paul? We got a great handle for you today. Pastor Coco from MMO Church, which is part of the VR Church ministry. Jay Earhart from Love Clan. That's what he's talking about. I would just Cheddars is here. He's from Cornerstone VR as well as VR Church. And then Pastor Jason Pooling from Cornerstone VR, the first physical church to create a metaverse community. So we're gonna take it. Can't hear the music. Okay, gotcha.
Music loud.
Yeah, music pretty loud. It's a bop.
All right. Choose this media.
Testing.
1, 2, 3.
Testing.
All right, we're going to get started really shortly. What I was saying when the music was super loud was that here's the panel for today. We got Pastor Coco. She is from MMO Church, pastor here with our VR Church ministry. And then we have JPO. Well, let me go to Jate next. And then, guys, I think you might need to mute your mics because I think it pushes you to large screen if it hears like a loud sound. That's what I'm noticing.
It seems like if I click it, maybe it clicks it for everybody. Here, maybe it's like who you click. I don't know. Oh, yeah, maximize the stream for everybody. So it's not just for yourself. Whoever's clicking those buttons.
Yeah, gotcha. So Pastor Coco from MMO Church, it's a part of VR Church ministry. Jade Earhart from Love Clan. I was saying you definitely need to listen to him. And then we have Cheddars, will be here very shortly. Cheddars is part of Cornerstone VR as well as VR Church. And then Pastor Jason Pooling from Cornerstone VR and the first physical church to create a metaverse campus. You're definitely going to want to hear from him now very soon. Danny, what's up? Sean, what's up from Fort Collins, Colorado? Man, we got people from Brazil, Idaho, Melbourne, Australia. What time is it over there, Robert? Man, so good to see you guys. We're going to get started very soon. As a matter of fact, we're going to get started in like just a couple of minutes. So let's see if we can't get this figured out here. Let's go.
Lily's trying the Oculus Rift for the first time.
There's
Just imagine going to church where the sanctuary behind the preacher suddenly morphs into biblical locations.
If you could attend church from your home, would you? One former megachurch pastor is betting yes.
Is it actually scary though, Dad?
Hey everyone, I want to welcome you to how to launch a Metaverse Church in 3 days. That's something that we did at VR Church, and we want to share some of our knowledge with you. Got a great panel from people all across the world, and it's so good to see everybody, people from Brazil. Hey, what's up, Stu? Good to see you, buddy, in the chat. People all the way from Australia. What time is it in Australia, man? That sounds like it's, what is it, like in the future over there. So it's so good to see everyone, and I hope you're doing well. It was interesting what Megan Kelly said there in the video. Can you imagine going to church from your home? Now, that was in the Today Show, probably 2018-ish, definitely well before COVID. And it's interesting to see now how, looking back, that was just a kind of a crazy thought, crazy question. Of course, we all went to church from home. And now we have this new form of church coming out, and it's called the Metaverse. And I know can be a confusing topic for some. Some were excited, some were concerned. You know, there's a lot of emotions around it. But here's something to think about right off the bat. And so to kind of give a framework to how we think about this. And that's that the information age is coming to a close and the experience age has begun. And the experience age is all these new terms that we've never heard before. We're talking about Web3, Metaverse, blockchain, virtual reality, augmented reality, cryptocurrency. I know like these new terms can be overwhelming. It wasn't too long ago that Web2 had those terms. Remember the first time someone said to Google something? And so now we're here with these new terms for a new era of computing. So we're going to be talking about all these different things. And one of these things that I think is significant is the vision that's around this behind the scenes. There are billions of dollars being spent by major tech companies for Web3. We're talking VR, AR, we're talking all these different elements. And we haven't, I don't think, seen the full impact of what that is. It's coming. And I believe that as you're here to get ready for it. So I think that's awesome. So we're going to go through 3 phases today's webinar. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at it through the eyes of 3 days. Now, it doesn't have to literally be 3 days, but we're going to break it down into different mindsets that I think you should have. This is personal opinion, and maybe you already have something like this as a part of your organization or your church. But first, we want to encourage you to explore. I know some of us want to jump in, and I think that's great, and I'm all for that. I'm a jumper inner myself, but there's this aspect of VR Church is how it's developed over the years to be an exploring institution. Like we want to explore these different aspects. Day 2 is experimenting. We want to figure out what this platform can do. What are all the possibilities? And then finally, establish. So we'll talk about that in a bit. A little image here from the first service in VR. This was back in 2016. When I first launched the church, there was 5 people who came to our church service. And maybe as a physical church planner, you would be like devastated that 5 people came to your first church service. But for me, I was so excited. And the first visitor was an atheist from Denmark. And he said something to the effect of, man, I don't know what this is all about, but I'm just curious about faith and I'm curious about God. And that's when the light bulb came on. Man, I never had that as a physical church pastor. I was a physical church pastor for years, and I never had an atheist come in, outside of Christmas or Easter and say, hey, I want to come to church and check this out. So that's a beautiful thing. And I was a physical church pastor for years, but now I'm a pastor in the metaverse, like many of these people on the panel. And we're going to have the panel introduce themselves in just a second. Here's a little image of one of our church plants. So when you think of VR Church, you think of it less of a a single church experience, but a church planting movement. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But a couple things, feel free to ask some questions. If you have questions, put them in the chat. We're going to actually test one right now to see if this works. We're kind of new to this platform. Let's see.
There's a questions tab, specific questions tab that you can ask your questions in so we can see them. So make sure you use that and we can answer them.
And I think if they're answered, we can't push them to the screen. So let's save the next question to see if we can push towards the screen for that. All right, enough of me talking. Let's do a little sponsor break here. So we have some sponsors that are partners and helping us out with the webinar here. I just need to pull up a little, there we go. And so first of all, I'm just really thankful for Meta. Is one of our sponsors, and they are the next evolution of social connection. Their company's vision is to help bring the metaverse to life. That's wild. So they are changing their name to reflect from Facebook to Meta to reflect that commitment to this future of the metaverse. So thank you for our sponsors of Meta. Jeff Reed and the Church.digital. If you haven't heard of Jeff Reed, you definitely need to connect with him. He's helping to create new biblically solid churches in phygital, digital, and meta spaces. And Jeff, if you're able, I know you're going to come in here and chat. Let me know if you can get in the speaking area here. Try to join that. Let me know if you can. If not, Jeff has some links there for you. It doesn't look like you have the speaker icon, Jeff, so we'll have to figure out oh, here we go. I'll get you in here. Thank you, Jeff, so much. And Jeff, come on in here because I know you have to go. We usually had Jeff at the end, but we might just interject him right here at the beginning. And then another sponsor is Digivangelism, helps progressive leaders of spiritual leaders share hope, healing, and light online. We currently do so through weekly free blogs and videos, daily free social media posts, most active on TikTok and Instagram. And that's where I discovered Digivangelism, on TikTok. And our ebook, Be Church Online. Also, their first ever course, a DIY digital communications review course, will be ready within the next few weeks. So Digivangelism, thank you so much for being a sponsor. So good to see you. Jeff Reed from Church Digital. Tell us what's going on, man.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Man, it's great to be here. Sorry for the tech issues. We'll blame it on a spam filter or something. I didn't get the email. Man, listen, DJ, I'm excited about what you're doing here, promoting the idea of Web3 and trying to help churches get to that next level. And the 3 days, man, that can seem huge to try to tackle and do all of this in a 3-day perspective. And through the Church Digital, we've had so many people come to us and start to talk to us about trying to help in the metaverse. I almost feel like I want to rebrand the name of the company to MetaChurch.digital. Like I think we're going to go whole hog and really start to address the metaverse with that. And so I put a link in the chat, MetaChurch.digital, where there's coaching groups, usually working with DJ and Jason Poling and some of the guys that are on this screen, where there's even world building, working with Goose and some others that are in that space, and consulting and online courses and all of this. Basically, we realize, hey, metaverse can be scary. Metaverse, anytime you're doing something different, it can be scary. And so we want to walk with churches through that. There's all sorts of crazy things that we're doing. Thank you, Arthur, for that. I appreciate you typing that in. There's all sorts of things that we're working with Leadership Network on. I was just announced the other day as let's get this for the title, right? Here you go. Director of Meta Church Next. No, I'm sorry. Director of Metaverse Church Next. I mean, we're really the organization. This is crazy. Fancy. There's a global organization that's embracing the idea of metaverse and trying to get churches to go there, right? So this is good times, man.
Wow, man, that's awesome. Sorry, I was just testing out the answering mechanism. So sorry, I think that came over your head. Apologize for that. Do you see that? Did that come over?
No, it's good. But hey, listen, it's great to be here. Check out metachurch.digital for more information on how we can help your church get to the metaverse, and you can reach out to me through the webpage there. So DJ, thanks for the time, man. I appreciate you squeezing me in.
Hey, thanks, Jeff. Good to see you, my friend. Yes, so look, a question here. Is it possible to establish a meta church with a small fund? Yes. And we're going to talk about budgets. VR Church, we didn't start with anything. It was just the VR headset that we had. I mean, that would be one cost, but we'll talk a little bit more about some of that as well. And so I appreciate the team. You guys are already answering the questions on the questions tab. Feel free to do that. Let's get the Pastor Coco, if you don't mind pushing the poll there for us. The first question for you guys is, what stage are you in with the metaverse? Just really curious who I'm talking to. There's no wrong answer, by the way. Some of you are like, meta what? How did I get here? Somebody sent me a link. I don't know what's happening here. What's going on?
There should be a polls tab for you to see the poll if it's not showing up.
Oh, good. Polls tab. So you have the chat tab, the questions tab, and then the poll tab, I believe. You should be seeing that. So the live poll's going, exploring the possibilities is at the top. That's great. Some of you are like, meta what? Where am I? Somebody sent me a link. I don't know what's happening. Planning stages. Okay, we got at the moment 14% are planning to launch a Metaverse Church. That's awesome. 3%'s already established. Ooh, we'd love to hear what's going on with that. Want to hear those stories. And 1%'s ready to launch. So 98 votes on that as of now. So now let's introduce the whole panel. I have Jason and Jate here, but let's start from the left. Go Coco, Jate, Cheddars, Jason. If you guys don't mind unmuting your mics and letting everyone know who you are and what you do.
Hi, I'm known as Pastor Coco. I am a pastor for Final Fantasy, which is on our MMO church side of things in that umbrella VR MMO church. And yeah, train's coming, so I need to mute.
The train's coming. All right, Pastor Jate, what's up, man?
Hello, I'm Jate, and I started it's all online, group called Love Clan, which is a group of people who are all gamers, and we then moved. Now I'm doing mostly live streaming, so I stream full time on Twitch and get an opportunity to meet gamers where they're at and spread the gospel in a pretty unique way.
Well, hello. I'm Cheddars. I'm just a friendly volunteer at VRMO Church and Cornerstone Church, trying to help out churches get started with a wiki called Metaverse Ministry Network Wiki. Feel free to Google it, and also with a Discord on it too. Yeah, and I tend to be the technical help for a lot of the Altspace VR events, and then I just point people to the people who know what they're doing in Rec Room and VR Chat and other platforms.
Awesome. Cheddar says come in avatar form. Good. And last but not least, Pastor Jason Poling.
Hey, yeah, I'm Jason, and I am one of the pastors at Cornerstone Church in Yuba City. We're in Northern California, just north of Sacramento, and a small church up here. And we jumped into the metaverse about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and have a few campuses there now. So yeah, it's been exciting. Can't wait to talk about it more.
Awesome, man. Yeah, looking forward to it. So here we go. How to start a Metaverse Church in 3 days. We're going to go into day 1. It doesn't necessarily need to be a literal 24-hour day. It's just a mindset to go explore. That's what I want to encourage everyone, particularly as we're looking at the polls. And I'm going to go click back and look at that. The top poll at 67% is exploring the possibilities. So that tells me this is going to be great. And I want to encourage you to explore. And so let's talk a little bit about that. But first of all, what is the metaverse? For you 15% who are like, well, where am I? Let's talk a little bit about it. We're not going to do a deep dive on it, just a little overview. The term first came with Snow Crash. I highly recommend reading this book. By the way, it's sci-fi, it's Hollywood, so you're not going to necessarily like learn anything technical, but it just gives a vision for these physical worlds and these virtual worlds that exist and they coexist. And so Snow Crash, great book, especially if you're a sci-fi reader, no brainer, you should get that. I personally love the next book. Ready Player One is so good. Again, it's Hollywood. It's, I think, in the next image here, we have Steven Spielberg made a movie about it. You should watch the movie. Again, sci-fi, you're not necessarily going to learn anything technical or ministry related, but these are just kind of give glimpses into what we believe that metaverse is going to be. Maybe a Hollywood version of it, but these virtual worlds that exist. And so we'll want to encourage you with that. And that's where the term first came in, was through Snow Crash, and really carried on through Ready Player One. But at its core, a metaverse is a virtual reality space in which users can interact with a computer-generated environment and other users. Now, we've never seen this before. We've never had this moment in history. This is very new, where we're interacting with each other in these 3D dimensional spaces as avatars, where our physical bodies are reflected in the avatar world, which means, like, I have my Oculus controller here, and as I lift my hands into VR, my avatar also reflects that in virtual reality. If I turn my head to the left, my headset is tracking, and that is also reflected in the movements in the metaverse. So when I'm preaching on a Sunday and I do this motion, my avatar has done that motion. It's incredible. It's fascinating technology. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the VR headsets for some of you who are like, I don't even know where to start. But just a quick little background. This is the fourth computing paradigm. If you guys look at the top left, does anybody do DOS? I'm looking through in the chat. Any DOS users out there? DIR/W, maybe you guys know what I'm talking about. And then that was the first computing paradigm. Michael in the chat says, yes. Ben Wilson, yes. Antoine, yes. On the top right, computing changed to the second paradigm, where we're interacting with it with like a mouse and keyboard. It became graphical. There's Windows from Microsoft. And then the third computing paradigm on the bottom left, the smartphone revolution. And I don't even have to spend any time telling you how crazy that revolution has been, how it's transformed everything we've done, communication, banking, you name it. And then now the fourth computing paradigm is coming, and it's actually here. And that's virtual reality and augmented reality. And the term you're going to hear more often is probably less computing paradigm and more Web3. So that's what's coming. So let's talk about day one. We're going to talk about major metaverse platforms. Someone was asking, what platforms are you on? Here are some of them. We're going to be talking about AltSpace VR, Rec Room, VR Chat, Horizon Worlds, and that's from Meta. And then we'll have a little asterisk with Somnium Space and Decentraland, kind of like these guys are kind of up and coming. So we'll talk about here in just a second. Before we do that, let's see here. Panel, just a quick thought. Any introductory thoughts about when you first came into the metaverse, you first experienced it, you put on the headset, you walked around VR Chat, AltSpace VR. Just give me like a 30-second like reaction. What was your feeling when you experienced that for the first time? J-Po, you first.
Yeah. I was blown away. It's hard to even describe. It's so you feel. I think what's cool about the spatial relationship, like you can be in a conversation here, and somebody can be way across the way, and you can't quite hear the conversation. It's not like Zoom, it's not like a 2D platform where it's all cacophonous. It's just like it's so immersive. It was mind blowing. And then I visited DJ's church, and it was so crazy. It was so neat to be greeted by people and go around talking to people, and it was amazing.
All right, Cheddars, how was your first time in VR?
Oh, first time. First time was just a blast where I was like, wait, so I could feel this bow being pulled back by the vibration of this controller and release it. That was so cool. It felt like I was actually using a bow and arrow. And I gave like a 60-year-old the device one day, and he knew how to use a bow and arrow, and he could shoot just as straight in virtual reality as in the physical world. So I thought that was crazy. But then the big moment for me was when, COVID started, we had a prayer team, and I realized, wait, there's spatial audio. We can have 5 people praying at the same time, and you can still understand who's talking and who's saying what, because you can hear the person, like you can tune in to one person over there because of the spatial audio, or tune into the other person. So I thought that was so cool.
Yeah, and Cheddars, I like how you came in your avatar, because when you're doing this with your avatar, you're doing that in the physical world. You're like, it's like,
yeah. I was trying to mimic you the whole time when you were like, when I raise my hands.
When I raise them. Jay, what's good, man? You have an HTC Vive, right? What was that like when you first tried it out?
Yeah. So I've been in it for, I guess, a long time now, it's weird because it feels like it's just starting to blow up, but it's like, I don't know. It's kind of like driving a car for a couple of years, and everybody's like, "Hey, have you heard about these things called cars?" And it's like,
Yeah.
10 years ago when I, but yeah, my first time actually, I spent 10 hours in VR the very first time that I got in, and you walk around a set space, because you only have, you have a set space you can walk in, and you try not to leave those boundaries because it's got a kind of Tron looking grid around that you can see inside the headspace, so you don't walk into things. And I'd walked in circles essentially for like 9 hours the first time that I played. And so when I took off the headset and finally was like, oh man, I'm going to bed, that was crazy, and I set it down, whenever I walked past that grid space, I almost had a heart attack because my brain had been so wired to like not leave that space. But yeah, no, I mean, it's as close as I mean, I played games my whole life, but this is something different, just very, very realistic. So yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, there have been some moments, like all of VR is just incredible, but then there's some moments that are just unbelievable, just crazy. Maybe we'll get to some stories later about that. But Pastor Coco, let me know, how was your experience?
I'm trying to remember my first experience because it's been a while. I got into it because of my career, as I actually design for XR and I teach other people how to design for XR. So I was just grabbing as many experiences as I could and playing them. And I honestly don't remember what was the first one. So, but yeah, I was bought in right away. I think probably one of my first experiences was Richie's Plank Challenge. And it was surprising how scary it actually is to try to walk out on the plank. I had to cheat and look at the floor so I could walk out on the plank. That's all I remember.
I've seen videos of people with Richie's plank experience, like actually jump off the plank into the floor. And so the reason, when here in the webinar, the reason we're talking about this is to talk about the immersiveness. Like when you hear each of these stories, you're hearing this immersive experience that people are having. And that's really what I want to cast vision for as you go into the metaverse, because you might have some of your church leaders that are hesitant. Like, can you have relationships? Can you have connections? What's it going to be like? And I really wanted to cast the vision that there is an incredible immersive experience to be had. And we're going to get to a little bit about that. I see some of your questions like platform, budget, all those things. Panel, feel free to answer those, but we'll also touch on them in the coming minutes here. All right, so everyone buckle up. We're about to just, dive into this. This recording will be available afterwards as well. So if we went too fast, you can go back and listen to it very carefully. But let's just jump right into AltSpace VR. This is a great place to start if you're going to start a Metaverse Church ministry small group. And we'll talk about the other ones. The other ones are great too. But this one is great. And here's some pros about AltSpace. There's video playback. I think churches that I'm noticing are coming in and are broadcasting their church service into VR, into the metaverse, which is a great place to start, not a great place to stay. We'll talk about that later. So the pro of using something like AltSpace VR is the video playback. You can connect your current Web 2 experience into Web 3. Again, I'm going to be repetitive here. A great place to start, not a great place to stay. It's great for events. They have good moderation tools. Like if you have a security team to deal with trolls, you can mute, you can block people, you can build worlds. We'll talk about that later. That's why Cheddar is here to talk about building worlds. And front row technology for AltSpace VR, where in theory, you can have as many people as you want. It'll create different servers or clones of rooms. So you could have 1,000 people in an event if you wanted to. The pro is it's backed by Microsoft. So anytime these big tech companies are behind it, I think it's a powerful thing. Cheddars has mentioned it's a developer user-friendly in terms of modifying the client. So maybe Cheddars, we can chime in on that later. Cons for using that is, and by the way, pros and cons for each of these platforms. I'm not hating or any of that, but just giving you some reality as you encounter these metaverse spaces. One is the occasional bug. Secondly, it's backed by Microsoft, which I know is contrarian to what we just said, but I've seen Microsoft squash big programs. Mixer, that was squashed by Microsoft, and so it's a good and a kind of hopefully that it'll last. And slow response to bug fixes. Panel, not everyone has to chime in. Does anybody have any quick thoughts on AltSpace for the people here in the webinar? Any thoughts you have, Jason or Cheddars?
What do you think, Cheddar?
Yeah, I'll just go for it. I like, great for events means in one way that you're gonna probably have the most mature audience, because all the intense developers go to VR chat, all the kids and people that are looking for a gaming experience go to Rec Room, but all the people who want to talk and who want to be heard go to AltSpace VR. So expect a lot of people to want to share their views on, communion, for example, and expect a lot of people to come in and be completely silent in the back of the room. But yeah, that's my first thought.
Yeah, AltSpace is definitely more calm. if you're looking for just a little more, I guess more like a church service as most people here are accustomed to, that's probably more of an AltSpace experience. VR chat, as you'll talk about in a second, it's a little more Wild West and crazy, but awesome in its own right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just have a quick video of just some images from AltSpace for those that never seen it. So we have a percentage of people that are here that are like, I've never seen anything like this. And so all these avatars that you're seeing here on the screen are real people. These are real people. They're in VR. There is a 2D mode, so you don't have to have VR, which is another pro of AltSpace. But they're interacting, they're connecting, and like JPO said, it's a great place to start, I think. So let's keep moving. We got some other things to really dive into. The next one is going to be quite interesting. VR chat. All right. I know we're going to get an interesting reaction here. By the way, surprisingly enough, when I pulled the panel here before, this happened to be one of our favorite metaverses. So we'll talk about VR chat a little bit. Here is an image from one Sunday at VR Church. You can tell the avatar system is completely different. The AltSpace avatars really have a form and a function that they don't like get away from. There's a lot of customizing when it comes to those avatars, but in VR chat, you can literally be anybody. You can be Yogi Bear to Scooby-Doo. It doesn't matter. It's all in VR chat. And so, yeah, let's talk about the pros and cons. Before we do that, the pros and cons, Jate, what do you think about VR chat? Give me your thoughts on that. Or if you're eating JPO, can chime in.
That's fine. I can do both. VR chat's my favorite. Yeah. I mean, we were already talking about kind of the benefits of it. Obviously, it has downsides too. VR chat's kind of the definition of a thought that's been coming up lately in my mind, that the level of good you can do is also the level of bad, and vice versa. And the freedoms that you have in VR chat can be used in both directions. And so it's really just a matter of who's using what and if they're using it for good or for bad. And so we have a lot of freedoms, and we can use that in a good way. Obviously, there's lots of people that are going to use it in a very negative way. And so there's a lot of private. When we're talking about this stuff, there is a not safe for work culture that kind of comes along with VR chat. Unfortunately, it's not allowed to be done publicly, but there are private rooms that people will go to, and so that's the reality of the site. But that being said, I have found that people can express themselves the most freely, and since they can be whatever they want and they can leave whenever they want, they tend to be just very open about everything. You can walk up to somebody and just have a conversation about anything that you want to, and it's very unique in that way, in my opinion.
That's good, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Just a quick question from the chat. Let's see. Matt works at a church and would love to experience a VR church, but it seems most only have services on Sunday when I'm at physical church working. Does anyone have an example I could check out not on Sunday mornings? JPO, I think everything's on Sunday mornings right now, or Sunday. I don't think there's
on
any
Sunday. We're not on Sunday mornings, but I don't know if he's asking about Sundays or Sunday mornings.
Wait,
yeah.
Wasn't there like a Rec Room service that was on like a Thursday night at one point, or is that still going?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe I'm forgetting.
Coco, maybe you can Google this for us, because I used to have this data, but I don't have the latest. Are there stats for how many people are on these platforms currently? Everything I see seems to be about the future of VR and its possibilities, but nothing about getting people onto the platform. it is difficult for churches to adopt smartphone apps, which increases tenfold with tech like this. So maybe we can look at some data about that. But I will say this is early adopter stage, or maybe early majority. So you think of the diffusion of innovation. You have your pioneers and innovators, then your early adopters. So those are the people first in line at the Apple store to get the iPhone. If that's you, you're probably an early adopter. And then your early majority, and then that's, it starts to kind of like rise there. I think from what I've heard, and this is from someone else, mega churches tend to be right here at the top of an early majority and then the downward late majority. And so you don't necessarily see a lot of people adopting this yet, but then there's the laggards. So lagging is not a bad term. It sounds negative, but it's when grandma has the smartphone. So when grandma has the VR and she's like walking around the metaverse, then we've definitely gone over to that stage. So
I've posted an article, and Cheddar's posted something as well.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. All right, well, let's talk about the pros and cons of VR chat. For me, and you guys chime in, interrupt me if anytime if you agree or disagree. I think it's the most immersive metaverse experience. When you read the book Ready Player One, when you read a Snow Crash, and you have that vision in your brain, which we did before all this came, and then you were to ask me today, where is that right now? I would say it's probably in VR chat. I think the other ones definitely are very immersive and very compelling. Don't get me wrong, but VR chat has that Ready Player One feel. And so that's why I say it's the most immersive. The other ones are immersive too. I guess maybe let me specify that it feels like Ready Player One is what I'm trying to say. The avatar system is amazing. You can literally be anyone. There's no limit. The library of avatars is unbelievable. Had a friend come in and he says, hey, I like Gears of War. We went to go find Gears of War characters. And the other pro is very heavily populated. Now the cons, and let me be super clear here. If you're thinking about launching a church, a metaverse, or ministry, I would think very carefully before going into VR chat, because it is the wild west of the metaverse. And what I mean by that is hackers can break the experience. It can be a little trolly. There's a little bit of a PG-13 kind of like, experience that you can have there. Doesn't mean you can't run into trolls or people being weird in other platforms, but VR chat is definitely, the pendulum is definitely on that side of things. People ask, well, why is VR church or VR chat is a dark place? Why is VR church there? Well, you answered the question. We want to be a light in darkness. And like what Jade said, I think it's how it's being used. So it doesn't have to be a dark experience. You can control it. You can moderate it. You can have private rooms. Like if you wanted to do a small group there, that would be sweet. You can create a small private room with your friends. You don't have to get trolled or hacked. We just tend to be a public experience in VR chat. So that's why I'm bringing this particular perspective. You guys have any thoughts on VR chat before we move on?
I'm with you guys. I love it. I just think there's so many opportunities. People are hurting. You can just feel the pain of the people there and the loss, the loneliness. Like I think Jake might have mentioned it, just how quickly people will share deep things. Like it's amazing. Within 5 minutes of meeting somebody, they'll tell you things. And I know DJ, you'll probably share some stories. And it just gets such an opportunity so quickly to give them the hope of the gospel. It's unlike anything I've experienced in physical church, to be honest. And I love physical church. I'm a physical church pastor too, but it's just something amazing about people sharing there in VR chat. So I love it.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
From a technical perspective, VR chat allows people to add scriptable events to their worlds. So there are a lot more experiences, like being able to jump into a fighter jet and fly it around, or being able to go into a roller coaster and, enjoy seeing dragons and wizards fighting it out. And there's even been film festivals, basically, of VR chat worlds, just to give an idea. Whereas that gives VR chat the edge above most other platforms where, AltSpace VR limits you to only uploading 3D models and using a complicated system to do scripts called mixed reality extensions. And then like other platforms like Rec Room and Horizon Worlds require drag and drop programming systems that are limiting in the number of pieces of code you can put. So if that's why VR chat looks so nice, and is got so many great experiences that maybe you'll be able to incorporate into your church experience.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thanks so much, Cheddars. Appreciate that. Well, let's talk about Rec Room a bit. Let's see. Do you guys have any experience with Rec Room? Or I know, Jason, you do.
Yeah.
Anybody else have experience with Rec Room? Just curious before we move on. And I was trying to buy some time to launch this video.
I mean, yeah, I spend time in Rec Room.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, well, first impressions. Just a quick thought on Rec Room. What do you guys think?
Probably a little younger audience, maybe. I don't know, maybe some upper level alpha generation, maybe younger Zers, you know. That's at least my experience.
Yeah.
So more of almost a little bit more of a youth group kind of feel. I don't know if you guys have experienced that, but
yeah, and actually, let's go back to the slideshow, because I was exactly going to talk about that particular thing. So here is one of our churches in Rec Room, or one of our churches that used to be in Rec Room. So now we don't have it there anymore. We're going to hope to relaunch in the future. But this is an image of praying on launch day for that church. And so one day we hope to be back in that space. But here, let's talk about some pros and cons. So right off the bat, let me just say this. Rec Room is great if you're thinking about a youth experience. You said we need something for our youth group. We want a youth experience in the metaverse. Which one do we use? Rec Room, hands down, thumbs up, 100%. It's great. I think you'll love it. And so here's the pros and cons in my perspective. Panel, feel free to agree or disagree. It's the most fun metaverse platform. So we talk about like Altspace being great for like modern events, and VR chat's very immersive. And then Rec Room to me is the most fun. It was built for games. It was built to have like laser tag, bowling, racing, parkour games. And so it's just built around that. And it has the strong social tools as well. So it's really fun. They're a very innovative platform. They're always coming out with something interesting and unique that you don't see anywhere else. But here's the killer feature for Rec Room, is that it can be accessed by seemingly every device. It's VR. It's on your console, PlayStation, Xbox, mobile phones. You can download it on your mobile phone, iPhone, and Android. And that alone really kind of sets it apart above everyone else in so many ways. Now, the cons, like Pastor Jason was saying, the avatar system is for a younger audience. So it kind of has that, Michael Wiley, I was just about to say that. You just took the words out of my mouth. Rec Room gives me a Roblox vibe, right? Nothing wrong with the Roblox vibe, but it definitely does feel a little bit more towards the younger crowd, which leads to the second con. The social experience can feel a bit immature. So not that you don't feel that in other experiences, but generally you can run into an adult or, have conversations, but it seems like there's like little kids running around, you know what I mean? So it can kind of feel that way. Also, the interface can be overwhelming. I think the other ones do a little better of a job. I think Horizons does the best job as far as interface and understanding moderation, how to protect yourself and all those things. But when you go all the way down to Rec Room, tends to be on this other end where it's a little bit overwhelming and intimidating. Still able to like function in there, but can be difficult sometimes. All right, before we go to Horizon Worlds, any thoughts? If you're just popping into the webinar, we're talking about some of the metaverse platforms that you should be exploring. We're talking about day one, exploring metaverse platforms. We're going to get to experimenting with these platforms in just a second, but we're exploring. Anybody final thoughts on Rec Room before we go into Horizons?
I love the paintball. Got to try the paintball. Have you done that, DJ?
Yeah. The paintball is
great.
That's
the best.
Here's the thing, and that's the thing. Like your youth group can have an amazing space, and you can have a paintball facility. Like you can't do that in the physical world, but the metaverse lets you have your own facility. It lets you have your own paintball. You can have your own bowling alley. The metaverse is going to be an equalizer to that point. And this is, I was going to say this earlier. I'll say it quickly now. When you come into the metaverse, you're going to notice that it's less about mega church and medium church and small church and the various budgets those churches have. And with those budgets, they can do certain things. When you come to the metaverse, it's an equalizer. You can have a youth group of 10 kids or 100 kids, and it's going to look the same because you can have your own facilities, you can have your own paintball, bowling, and that translates to so many things about the metaverse. We're all going to be meta churches, so to speak. So
yeah, DJ, did you say, I was reading the questions here, I might have missed it, about the multi-platform capability of Rec Room? Did you mention that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's another great thing. Even if some of your youth don't have VR headsets, they usually have a smartphone they can get on and still participate. So
awesome. Yeah, you're absolutely right. All right, let's talk about Horizon World. Some of you say, I haven't heard about this. Meta, or formerly Facebook, has launched their own metaverse platform. This is currently, I believe, only in North America. Correct me if I'm wrong, people from Europe. Last that I knew, Horizons World was limited to the North America. I think they're going to slowly roll it out. And let's talk about it. By the way, you guys have experience with Horizons World as I look for the video to launch it. There we go. Have you been in there, Jason?
Yeah, I've been in there. I like it. It may be lagging behind just because Meta is a little late to the game. So I mean, somebody asked a question earlier about why not much talk about Horizons, and none of us are even doing church there. I don't think you guys aren't doing church in Horizons, are you?
And not currently.
Yeah, we aren't either. Yeah. So I don't know if it's just because it was late to the game, or I'm not sure if it's maybe you have a thought on that.
Yeah, I'll give you some thoughts, but I wanted. Sorry, I got to do a technical thing here. So we're not in that space, and we can talk about the pros and cons. But what do you think of the overall vibe?
I liked it. Yeah, it was kind of in between Alt Space and Rec Room, maybe. And
that's a good way to describe it.
But I liked it.
That's good. Anybody else? All right, let me go back to this thing over here. Yeah, let's talk about the pros and cons of Horizons. First of all, I think a big pro about this, well, if you look on the top, it says Horizons World. So the main thing to think about is it's just been released very recently. So a lot of these this is more like a preview. You can consider our thoughts about a VR chat, Altspace, and Rec Room like a review. Like we've been in there quite a bit. And here's a good review, or like a generic review about it. When it comes to Horizon World, you can think of this as a preview. Here's less of a review and more of a preview. So it's just released. And so it's to be determined how this is going to play out, but really strong offering right out the gate. I think it's really good. So here's some of the pros. It's backed by Meta. And obviously the rebranding from Facebook to Meta shows a massive commitment to this vision of the metaverse. So that's significant. I mean, even before this moment, they have put in billions of dollars into Oculus, which is the VR headset. So I think that was a huge move, and very interesting that, in my perspective, that a software company would become a hardware company. But I think they, I don't know officially, but I just am imagining that they saw the social impact and possibilities that virtual reality is going to have, and as a social company wanted to jump into that hardware. I think it's good performance. Sometimes in Altspace, certainly in VR chat, can have performance issues, big time. But it feels good. It feels good on the Quest. It looks good on the Quest, on standalone. When you think about VR chat, and maybe I should have put this as a pro or con, VR chat really only works well if you're PC VR, like your headset is connected to a powerful PC. But Horizons World, you can be untethered. It can just be the Quest, and we'll talk about VR headsets in just a second. And so I think it's great performance, and I think they did a great job with that. Fun and good building tools, like building worlds, where you can just build it with your hands. You can scale it really small and take a look. You can make it really big. So I think there's some strong building tools there. Scripting is pretty good there as well. But a couple cons, particularly for you as a Web 2 church, trying to enter into the Web3 space. There's no video player integration. So you're not going to stream your video, which you would have to have a hard time doing that on VR chat and a hard time doing that on Rec Room, by the way. Really, the only place to do that, streaming video, is going to be Altspace VR. Rec Room is questionable. I don't think there's like a screen sharing thing, but very limited, and VR chat very limited as well. Panel, correct me if I'm wrong. That's kind of the latest from me. And then the only other con in my mind is the opposite of Rec Room. Like Rec Room, every device. When it comes to Meta, it's only accessible by the Meta Quest or the Meta devices. So no Steam VR and no 2D mode like AltSpace has. So that's the only challenge. And so somebody was saying, how come, we haven't launched a church there yet? Well, half of our audience is in Europe, so we would be losing half of our audience. But once that opens up, I think those conversations are going to be had to get our community into that space, because the building is fun. The performance is great. And I think it's a strong offering right out the gate, even though it's brand new. Rumor has it, Eric says, rumor has it that Horizons may be coming to mobile. Really? Well, that would be a game changer, big game changer.
That would be.
That'd be huge. So if that is true, that would be amazing. All right, my friends, we'll do a questions break here. Any quick thoughts on Horizon World?
I think it's got a lot of promise. I mean, I definitely feel like that would be the next place that we'd want to go, possibly. I don't know for sure. It's something we want to talk over and pray over, but it's up and coming for sure.
Awesome. All right, my friends.
I was
Coco,
going to post some questions if you want a question break. Do we want to answer any of these live?
Yeah, sure. Pull one out for us and see if we can answer that. Roughly, how many people each week come to the VR church that you lead? Thanks for running today's training. Oh, thank you. I don't see the name. Doesn't show who.
Warren Bird.
Oh, Warren Bird. So at VR Church, we have 4 different experiences across VR and MMO. So when you consider all of that, there's probably 200 that attend our church. When you look down at a singular event like AltSpace, there could be like 40 to 50 for each event. We've certainly had more. That's kind of like that's like a good average for us, like 40 to 50 per AltSpace event. But yeah, that's kind of how it rolls. Jason, what kind of community do you guys see on a Sunday?
Yeah, similarly in AltSpace, 40 to 35, 40, and then VR chat can be, 50. Sometimes it gets crazy, but usually it settles down to about 40, 50. And so, yeah, those are our 2 services. Of course, like you as well, we have other places and like where we don't do services, like we go into Population 1, which is a really, really popular game in, I think Oculus. Does Oculus own that now? I mean, not Oculus. Does Meta own Population 1? Anyway, we do Bible studies in there.
Oh,
cool.
I don't know.
I can't remember who owns that, but
you do it in Bible, and that's cool.
Yeah, Pastor Goose does. Yeah,
that's
pretty
fun.
cool. Yeah,
that's awesome.
So we reach a lot of people that way too.
Oh, super cool.
Yeah.
All right. So we kind of already touched on this. We're talking about VR chat and our feelings on that. But let's get into the hardware really quick. We've got to probably pick up the pace a little bit if you guys don't mind, and that's on me. But major hardware. Here's some of the major players. If you're like, where do I start? I don't have VR. I want to get virtual reality. Some of the players are Meta, formerly Facebook, has the Quest 2. Valve has the Index. Now, the thing about Valve's Index is that it requires a very powerful computer. So that's something to keep in mind. Same thing with HTC Vive. And Sony's doing some interesting stuff with their PlayStation VR. I think that they are someone not to ignore. They have some interesting tech, interesting innovation when it comes to this space. So I'm interested to see what Sony does. So full disclosure is this webinar is sponsored by Meta. But even before this webinar, we did another webinar and we recommended the Oculus Quest 2 or the Meta Quest 2. And that also has been on our website as a recommendation, the Meta Quest 2. So full disclosure, we're being sponsored. But even before the sponsorship, this is the headset we do recommend you get. The Quest 2 is really just all around awesome. This is what I use. Are there more powerful, quote unquote, better ones? Yeah, the Index, but now you're going to be paying like 2 or 3 times at least 3 times as much. So for $299, I would get the Oculus Quest 2 hands down right away. It's a great place to start. What do you guys use for headsets, by the way? I think we all have different ones. Chime in on what you guys use.
I use the HP Reverb G1 just for fun.
HP G-Verb? Is that how I said it?
Reverb.
Reverb.
HP Reverb G1, because there was a generation before the G2. And the reason for that is just because it has a slightly higher resolution for visual clarity, which makes reading text from a distance a little bit easier in all the virtual spaces. But that's really the only reason.
Is that tethered? Is there any standalone
Yes,
element to that?
It's completely tethered to a PC, and you have Windows Mixed Reality hand controllers, which have batteries in them, which are nice. Double the batteries. Yeah.
Pastor Coco, what are you using?
I have a PlayStation VR that you can see back there. I have a Vive Cosmos and a Oculus Quest original, and I have the old school cardboard.
Oh, the cardboard. Wow. What about you, Jake? What you got?
Yeah, so I'm still using my version 1 Vive from like day one. And that's actually the reason why I suggest people use the Oculus stuff, the Quest 2 especially, just for the price. Like it's crazy how much I paid for mine back in the day, and then now how cheap it is. It's it's insane. It's really, really cheap. But it's just the amount of fixing I guess I've had to do over the years, and I guess it has been a long time, but even now I have like HDMI issues I have to fix to get my whole setup working again. It's working, but it's just not to its max potential. And then I bought index controllers, so I'm using a first generation Vive with index controllers, but one of my index controllers, the battery stopped working, and I had to RMA it, and I just got my RMA controller, so they were lucky enough. They went ahead and did it for me. But I would just say I've had a lot of things I've had to fix, and even buying the best of the best, the index controllers, I just personally had one die and had to, they fixed it without any cost. But I would just encourage anybody that doesn't have one for $299. I've only heard good things. There's some limitations, but man, I almost wish I would buy one just to whenever I don't have something else. So anyway, that's my take on it.
Yeah, and by the way, thank you, Eric, Dowden, and Nicole for answering questions. That's helpful too in the chat. Very, very helpful.
Yeah.
So like, will Oculus work in other spaces? Yes, like Altspace, VR chat. Like if you're doing standalone, sort of, kinda, it would need to be tethered for the best experience, or air linked. That's like a wireless tech for that. Pastor Jason, what's your VR?
So I actually got the Quest 1 initially, and then I got the Rift S, and then the Quest 2. And I actually prefer the Rift S, just mostly at my desk, and it's a lot lighter because everything's obviously most of the stuff that's needed to run the things in the PC. But if you like to play games that are a little more active, definitely don't get a tethered headset. You will probably have trouble, but definitely the Quest 2, I think all around is probably the best option because it's inexpensive, and you can always buy the what is it called, the link? Is that what it's called? The cord that can then connect you to the PC, so you can get the PC experience, but you can also untether yourself and play in your living room and have quite a big space to play. So Quest 2 is probably the best.
I love it. Paul Hoffman, is the whole Bible in the metaverse? There is a Bible app. I don't know the latest from it, and I don't know if it's been updated. It's probably an early version of what a Bible app could be. I don't think we have the YouVersion equivalent in virtual reality. We definitely need it. It's very late to not have it there yet. We're creating biblical experiences, so we sort of have the Bible in Altspace VR, sort of, kind of, but not in a app format where you can pull it up, maybe in an immersive environment. And that needs to be done like 2 years ago, right? So we definitely need development on that end.
And DJ, just real quick, Pastor Goose, who's our Metaverse pastor, he actually there's a world, I think it's in, Nicole just responded, I believe it's in VR chat. There's a Bible reader world. You can read the whole Bible. And
Dude,
I
gotta check that out.
I know. I don't. You think I would know where? I don't even know where it is, but Nicole might know.
Yeah, Nicole, post that link.
Yeah,
I'm gonna see that link. All right, my friends.
I want to quickly remind people that if you have questions, it's easier for us to see them and answer them if you go to the questions tab and enter them there instead of in the general chat.
Oh, good call, Coco. So in the bottom right, you should see chat, and then next to it is questions. If you put it there, that's helpful. And then polls is next there. I want to see that Bible world. That is, I think overall, not
Cool.
necessarily talking about you guys doing your thing there, but overall the presence of the scriptures as an app in VR is so late to the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, we need developers on that. So here's your homework, everybody. If you're here on the webinar today, first thing, go create your accounts. It's time to explore. All right, your church leaders perhaps will want, some, deadlines, and we want a launch date, and that's great. You should totally do that. But go create your account on AltSpace, VR Chat. Go check out Rec Room. There's also Horizons World. Create your avatars. That's one of the funner parts of getting into the metaverse, avatar, and then explore as many worlds and events as you can. Just go everywhere and understand everything about it. You'll probably find that one of them really connects with you more than the other. And so I really encourage you to begin exploring. Here's a little image of the calendar of events in AltSpace VR. Here's one from a Sunday from a few weeks ago. Top left, you see VR Church. Look at the middle right, you see Cornerstone VR. So generally speaking, this is how people will find your event. We'll talk about creating an event in just a second. We're just going to keep moving. Coco, you can push the next poll, but we're going to keep things moving just because of time. We talked about the favorite VR headset. And now let's talk about day 2 experimentation. So you spent some time exploring, you're checking things out, you're trying to wrap your brain around this whole metaverse thing, you're learning how to use VR, you're learning how to attend these events and experiences. But now, day 2, let's experiment with it, because we're going to launch something in virtual reality or in metaverse. So let's talk about that. We have a couple thoughts. One is creating a world, and the other one is creating an event. So those are 2 different things, and they're also one and the same, and we'll explain that in just a second. But Cheddars, let me look up your video, and you're just going to talk a little bit about starting a church in AltSpace VR. So we'll launch that video right now.
Thank you for the honor to speak to you tech-wise during this webinar about how easy it is to get a church set up in AltSpace VR. First step, pray. Second, create a Microsoft account. Third, create an event by going to altvr.com, events, my events, schedule an event, add info, select a world template, create and add as main event. Fourth, learn the moderation tools, which are under host tools, mute all to mute the audience except hosts and presenters, amplify my voice to be heard everywhere in the event, toggle stage blocker to allow non-hosts and presenters on stage, host panel to see who is talking with open mics, mute and possibly kick people, allow hand raises under participation, and give raised hands megaphone or stage access. Step 4 is all that is needed to preach in AltSpace VR. Steps 5 through 12 are optional. Fifth, add slides and videos using either Ben's Slides MRE with slides.com, the web projector with Microsoft Edge, or the multimedia player. Sixth, add notes using the AltSpace VR Quest web browser with your notes on a web page like on Metaverse Ministry Network Wiki, or using a stationary multimedia player that is only viewable from one side. Seventh, set up volunteer roles like hosts, presenters, and moderators. Eighth, set up live streaming using OBS and possibly Restream.io for multi-platform streaming. Ninth, learn Front Row to scale your events from 50 users to up to 40,000 users. 10th, learn AltSpace VR world building, being able to place objects that are in collections called kits. 11th, learn Unity, the game engine, to add custom 3D models to AltSpace VR. 12th, learn MRE or mixed reality extension development to create custom, scriptable, interactable objects similar to Ben Slides. For more information, go to metaverseministry.net with the VR-friendly URL of mvmn.wiki, or send your question to question@metaverseministry.net. Thank you for listening.
All right. So I know we're going quickly, but we'll have that in the show notes. There'll be a link to Cheddar's YouTube about that as well. So Cheddar's, man, thanks so much. I think that was really valuable. Any other final thoughts about creating an event? I think it's just something they're just going to have to just get into, and they'll have your guide. There'll be an AltSpace guide, but any thoughts before we move on?
I mean, so every step that was described there, there's a whole wiki page dedicated to other where you can find tutorials on those specific steps provided by AltSpace VR and some people in the community. And yeah, I mean, I just want to overemphasize that, you know, you really only need to know steps 1 through like 4 to be able to really perform an event. There have been many people, many pastors who will just create an event called Ask a Pastor Anything, and then they'll go ahead and, you know, have a wonderful event with many people being like, oh, I understand more about Christ now. Or other people like me and my dad would just have an event where, you know, in this space where we'd sit around and wait for world hoppers to jump in and explore the world and then pray for them, because this is a prayer breeze after all. And so there's many options of what you can do, and just be open to, you know, how Jesus and God wants to lead you in prayer, you know?
That's awesome. And sparked a thought in my brain. Me and Pastor Coco were talking about this. Very important. We're talking about technical aspects. And one thing I've noticed when people come into the metaverse, they're thinking about this experience. But really what you've highlighted is to connect. It's people first, experience second. The reason that's significant is because as churches, we're used to Web 2, like putting the YouTube out there and making sure that's a good experience. And you should. Good camera angles, good audio. We're pushing out these social media images, we're doing all these things. Web 3 is a little different. It's a little different mindset. You're not just coming here to push out an experience. You're here to connect with people. And that's going to win over every time by trying to focus on some grand experience. Now, we do have the grand experience, but it's not at the sacrifice of connection and cultivating community. And so I'll have some ideas hopefully later to kind of chat about that. But I wanted to kind of bring that up. So let's see here, experimenting with world building. And so we're just going to play this video just for a little bit, just because of time. But this is just a quick behind the scenes look of what it's like to build in virtual reality. It's as simple. Maybe I'll just let it play a bit and not talk over it. All right. Yeah, Eric, that was the old Avatar system. But yeah, so building an alt space in particular, and as well as Horizon World and Rec Room, VR Chat's a whole different thing. We're not talking about VR Chat right now. But these other platforms like Worlds, Horizons Worlds, Alt Space, and Rec Room, you can build with your hands. You have a tree, you pull it out with your hands, you resize it, you place it down. And it's as simple as world building like that. And we're going to talk about why that's significant with world building here in just a second. JPO, you guys have a custom world in AltSpace, is that right? You guys have done...
I was just writing an answer to a question. Yeah, we do have one that Cheddar's, the great Cheddar's, man, that guy rocks. Woo. He built our custom campus, and it looks just exactly like our campus in Yuba City with, with a bunch of other stuff, because you know you can do so much in VR, of course, that you couldn't do in real life. But it's pretty cool. He did a great job.
Awesome. Yeah. I love it. So I know maybe this is getting ahead of ourselves because you're exploring and you're experimenting with these metaverse spaces. But there's this other world to discover behind all that. Like I mentioned before, maybe your church leaders want to stream your 2D experience, your Web 2 experience into the metaverse. But really behind all that is this world of world building. So here's just a glimpse. We created every week at VR Church, we create a new build. Whatever the scripture we're reading, and we read one chapter of the Bible every week, we'll create a world around it. So this one was at the end of the book of John when, Peter was fishing and he couldn't get any fish, and Jesus was on the seashore. He was cooking fish over there, and there's the campfire. And we recreated all of that. And we feel like that really has a powerful impact on people that attend, because the scriptures are becoming tactile. The scriptures are becoming immersive, and the scriptures are imprinting at a different level than I've ever seen because of the experience. And so I encourage you, build a world, make it private, just start pulling things out, trying to figure that out. It's going to take some time. It took us years. Well, it doesn't take years to learn, but I'm just saying, to where we're at now, if you're going to go into VR Church and you're like, whoa, what is this? It's like this amazing build. It just took us time to get to that point. But it started out very simply. One of the first sermons I did with the world build, it was the woman at the well. And I just created this little well in front of the stage with a little water, a little frog hanging on there. And it just enhanced and it evolved from that, where we're just in these immersive environments. So love to talk about that more later. Like, here's a glimpse of Christmas services, walking with the community into the manger. And this right here is a custom build as well for VR Church. And so there's so much to explore beyond that. Now, a quick thought from Pastor Coco. I'm going to pull up this video from her. And I know we're running out of time here, so we got to pick up the pace. But this is important to think about when it comes to virtual reality. You really have to think about the design of it. You really have to think about how people are going to interact with your experience, how they feel when they go through it. And taking some time, even at a basic level, to think through that is very important.
My name is Alita Singleton, also known as Pastor Coco in the VR MMO Church community. I'm one of the elder pastors at VR MMO Church, and I run our church plant in Final Fantasy XIV, which is a massively multiplayer online role-playing game, or MMO. I'm also a professional UX designer for virtual reality applications, meaning I study humans and how they interact with technology, and then design experiences with those humans in mind. The easiest way to get started with a church in VR is to use the pre-existing environments, or worlds, that come included with apps like AltSpace, VR Chat, and Rec Room. Then, as your community and your volunteers and your resources grow, you may want to start using custom worlds or theme-based environments to support the content that you're teaching. It's been my hope for a couple of years now that we could have a repository of pre-created worlds that are optimized to the specific platforms that our ministries can choose from, much like what you can get now with Open Network or Ministry Pass for the platforms you're currently using. But until then, for those creating these worlds, or later for those assessing them for use in your ministry, you're going to want to have a basic understanding of UX best practices for VR. Understanding things like ease of access to your virtual world, how to minimize the risk of motion sickness and eye strain, and the social and human aspects of virtual reality will make a positive difference in the worlds you create for your ministry. You can read all of the best practices I've published so far on my website, the UX for XR Toolkit. And you can dive a little deeper with video lessons on my YouTube channel. More content is being added regularly.
Awesome. Love it. Pastor Coco, any final thoughts before we move on about that? I think it's really important as we go into the metaverse and we start thinking about like how people feel, how they interact. But I don't know if you had any thoughts before we continue.
Not really. We don't have a lot of time, but world building, you do need to think about legibility and locomotion, keep them from getting sick, things like that. So you can learn about that stuff through my resources.
Good stuff. Love it. Thank you so much. So when you go into, let's say you were to visit one of our VR churches this week, you might be, blown away and impressed, but really, like Coco was saying, start out with one of the templates, like let's say an AltSpace. Start out with like an auditorium world. When you look at on social media, like, Life Church, one of the largest churches in America, has come into the metaverse space, and they have their own custom space now. But when they first started, our friends at Life Church just used the template world. And that's a great place to start. Just go there, pick an auditorium world that you like. There's several different options. And it's just a good example of, we're thinking budgets, and that's great. we're thinking, strategy and world building, and do I need a developer? And just get in there, create a space, use the templates, and just start something. So we have a custom template here in VR Chat. But really, the first service in VR Chat, here it is. It was just an empty room. It was just a grid. There was nothing. Literally, you look to the left and the right, nothing. We would gather in a corner and have church. We would pray. We would share the scriptures. And that's really what I want to encourage churches to do, is to get in there, be exploring, be experimenting. Very important. All right, so a couple community things. I think Pastor Jabo talked a little bit about this earlier, about the relationships, the conversations, people who are hurting. We're very open to have authentic interactions in the metaverse. And one thing you need to think about is we're thinking experience, we're thinking of launching, but really don't forget it's still about people at the end of the day. And it's about connecting, it's about conversations. The reason I say that, and I want to say this very respectfully, is that I'm having conversations, maybe with larger churches who are looking to launch big, who need to perhaps report big numbers, and we need to create this amazing experience. And I'm all for that, by the way. I'm not an anti-megachurch guy. But what I'm noticing is that there's less of a focus on connecting with individuals. And really, that's the core. Like at VR Church, we probably had like 10 people the first year on average, like for the full year. And I know that in Web 2 world, we need big numbers. We need, the YouTube videos need to be in the hundreds and thousands. We need this attendance record. I know that annual reports are very, very important. That's true. But in the metaverse, you got to set your expectations to the reality that there might be 5 people that show up, or maybe 10. It's still in early adopter phase. I don't even think we're an early majority. So taking the moment to really evaluate motivation going in is important. The reason I say that is because I had just as an example, a gentleman joined our Discord server, and he says, hey, my denominational leader wants to launch this, big experience, multiple churches, thousands of people for our metaverse campus. And I was like, well, I love that. I love that. But hold on a second. Like, you got to explore, you got to experiment. And he said, I'm concerned that if we don't have the numbers on launch, they're going to terminate the program. And I completely get that. I've been part of megachurch world. I've seen that aspect where numbers are king. But really, when you go to the metaverse, it's not about numbers. Again, not anti-number. Maybe I'm going on a rant here, but it's really about connecting and cultivating. JPO, I don't know. What do you think? I kind of went on a little rabbit trail there, but
no, that's great. No, I think you're just right on. I think this is a new era. Mega churches are great. There's a lot of good things have come from mega churches, but I think we're in the meta church movement now, where maybe that's where a lot of small churches can really feel like, oh, I can do this, because we realize that we're never going to have like the huge numbers, and so we just are more, I guess, wired and geared towards just that really small ministry and just loving on people. Again, mega churches, I know you're not trying to rant on them. They're loving people too, but I just think being in the metaverse, one of the things that's huge, though, and you've already addressed this, but you're reaching a huge unchurched population. And so even if you're reaching 10, there could be 10 people from all over the world that either have never been to church, maybe live in countries that, just are unreached. And that's awesome. I mean, if we have a mega church, a lot of times you do end up with, some transfers from other church, people that were maybe formerly church that are de-church that are coming back. Those are wonderful things to have formerly de-church come back. But in the metaverse, you're really reaching a lot of completely unreached, unchurched people. So if you reach 10, that is awesome. That is a huge win for the kingdom. So I'm with you, man. I know it's hard for people to get past the numbers. We all struggle with it. But it's a different type of ministry. It's one-on-one. It's relational. It's just awesome in so many ways in that regard.
Looks like we have, sorry, get ahead of myself. JJ, I love what you said, 100%. I love that. So I'm just noticing conversations that I think there has to be maybe more of a reality check. I know Web 2 numbers are like that. And I want to just be repetitive. I'm not an anti-megachurch guy. I probably prefer that experience, to be honest. But I'm just noticing in my conversations that there is that, we got to launch big. We got to have big numbers. And you can see the concern that it's going to be terminated if it doesn't succeed like they think they would, like you think it will. So I love what Stu said. Where did Stu? I thought Stu put something in here. Let me see here. when we launched. So Stuart, correct me if I'm wrong, from Lakeland, VR. Is that correct?
Yeah, he's from Lakeland. Yep.
Yeah, does a church. You guys have been in their way for a long time, several months. When we launched Jason Pulling, we win in ones and twos, and that was so true. I love that.
Yeah,
that's a great. We win in ones and twos. Web 2 wants massive views, and that's great. I'm again not against that, but what Stuart says here, so powerful. We win in ones and twos.
Yeah.
I saw something else that Nicole said. We have a guy who leads a Bible study in Altspace every Tuesday. He says he never has a consistent group, but he just goes and hangs out by himself for a while, and God brings random people in. That's beautiful, beautiful.
And DJ, I got it real quick. I know we're running out of time, but that particular guy, he's in his 60s and or just turned 60, and he's homebound. He has a lot of physical issues, but he's such a heart for people. And so when we got him a headset, or somehow he got a headset, once he got in, he is just an awesome servant for the Lord, and he's reached so many people, loving on them. And it goes back to a story that you'll probably tell here in a minute of one of the folks at your church, the pastors, Pastor Alina. But it's so cool how that can happen. Somebody IRL who maybe felt like they didn't know how to have a ministry in real life because of their situation, and here he is ministering to people all over the world. It's awesome.
Yeah, and get your tissues ready.
Yeah,
we got a tearjerker coming up here in just a second, but it's so powerful. I wish we could spend some more time on this, because I do think it's very important for church leaders to hear. And you kind of brought up a thought. Really, we're talking about launching like Metaverse churches, but really there's ministry to be had. Someone's here in this webinar and you're not like connected to a church that's launching Metaverse. Like ministry in the Metaverse is ripe. Like just to go in by yourself into VR chat, to go in by yourself with Altspace or with somebody, maybe bring 2 or 3 people with you, and to go and to pray and to host and to connect and to talk. Ministries, it's just hard to explain. It's just going to happen, and it's just going to happen naturally, and you're going to deal with trolls and different things like that. But Jade, after this Pastor Alina video, I want you to kind of chime in on online community a bit, maybe just some stories about that. But Pastor Alina is a pastor with VR Church, and she has a beautiful story. And like I mentioned before, you should probably get your tissues ready for that. So we'll listen to Alina's story right now.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alina, and I'm a pastor here at VR MMO Church. I want to take a moment and just shift gears from how to launch a church in the metaverse and talk about why. Why do we want to bring our ministry into the metaverse in the first place? And there are many reasons why. And I'm living proof of just one of them. Easiest way is just tell you a little bit about myself. Before I was a pastor, I was a flight attendant for about 20 years until I became ill, chronically ill. It's been 12 years now. And this condition, erythromyalgia, it is literally means fire and pain. It's caused by temperature changes, and it's excruciating. And so I've been homebound for the past 12 years. It's the only thing that gives me any relief, any control, any minimizing of my pain. And I know I'm not the only one out there. But I was cut off from everything, cut off from life. No more work, no more play, no more socializing, no more church, no more meaning. The days just blurred together. TV, sleep, if you're having a good moment. I thought this was it. There is no cure for me. This is the rest of my life, until I put on a virtual reality headset and walked into Altspace and discovered Virtual Reality Church. That changed my life in the most amazing, most radical, most beautiful ways. My first sermon with Pastor Soto, he gave me hope where I'd lost it. I know I'm almost out of time. I wish there could be part 2, but just know there are people like me who can't come to you. And for you to bring the love of God, the power of Christ to where they are, it's pretty amazing. And I'm just so excited that so many of you have chosen, to take this leap and move your ministry into the metaverse. Because I promise you, you're going to touch the lives of so many people who never could have been reached, would have been lost without you. So thank you so much. I know I've gone over, and just God bless you all. I wish I could do a series on the many, many reasons our ministry should move into the metaverse. Thank you, everyone.
That's beautiful. And there are many reasons. There are many stories. We could probably, honestly, this is not even a bad idea. We should probably do a webinar called Stories, just stories, the whole time. We could fill up a couple hours, easy, talking about the impact, the connections. Jade, I want to hear your thoughts on this, because I feel like you have a good insight onto, people questioning whether you can have relationships, where you can have ministry, all that stuff. What are your thoughts on all of this?
Right. So yeah, my situation is maybe a little bit different, and so I'm a little bit quieter or whatever. But since I stream full time, and so it's my relationship with the internet is probably even different from you guys. Like, you guys are doing VR churches and stuff, but I mean, I really do. I pretty much just live online for the most part, and so a lot of my relationships have been on the internet. And so yeah, I kind of just responded a little bit to what Brian said, because I think it kind of hits at it. How do you know if people are lying to you? How do you know that the relationships that you're making actually are real relationships and not just people faking? Other people have asked questions about faking your skin color. Like, if I was to use a different avatar than my actual skin color, how disrespectful is that? And I think there's a lot of things to be said about all of those things. Yeah, exactly. Blue skin in Final Fantasy. Yeah, that's kind of where I landed with it too. Is it's like, those would make sense as questions if I hadn't already been online or in the metaverse for so long. But at this point, it's kind of funny, because I just had a good conversation with somebody in another language, trying to learn Japanese, and the person was a bowl of ramen. So I mean, I guess I just don't really think about that stuff anymore, because somebody who was like 3 foot tall anime girl had like the deepest voice I've ever met. So I mean, these things kind of but the reality is that people, it's just a thing, and I think we would all, the Bible says that man looks at the outward appearance or whatever, but God looks at the heart. And I just try to do that. It's like, whoever I'm talking to, I just realize that is that's a person. And regardless, like, does it matter if this person says I'm in a wheelchair or not? Does that really matter? Ultimately, it's just the person. I need to know this person, and I want to try to see people the way God does. And if he's looking at their heart, then that's what I'm trying to get to. And I really need to, check myself. I think if most of my fears are that somebody might pretend to be something that they're not, especially if that person is, they feel like this is best representing how they feel, and so I have a lot better chance of getting to know this person online, mostly because this person has no real reason to lie. Like, this person, I say the best and worst thing about online is that it's anonymous. I've said it multiple times. And I've seen that to become more and more true. It's the same thing I said earlier, where it's like the amount that you can do good is the amount you can do bad. And the fact that it's anonymous is fantastic, because it means that people can just be themselves. They say what they mean. And at the flip side, it's also very dangerous, because somebody can say whatever they want and they can just leave without any, I'll never get a second chance to catch up with them. And so with the people lying to you thing, it's kind of like people lie all the time. In a church setting, if you're sitting in pews talking to somebody and you say, "How are you doing?" There's a lot more at stake if I'm vulnerable in that situation than if I just say, "I'm doing fine. How are you doing?" But if I'm online, I might say, I'm not doing well. I'm really actually kind of depressed. And I'm being honest with you, because I know that I can just leave. and you never have to talk to me again. If you respond in a weird way, I mute you and I never see you again. So these are things that I think maybe get missed and could really get lost if you haven't spent time in online and in the relationships with people that really how open and honest people can be. These are the things we're talking about. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Jade. I love that. And I kind of think, like you said, like coming into that physical space and asking someone how they're doing, there's already an avatar there, a projected best self. So in one sense, avatars aren't very new. There's the physical one we project, and then there's the virtual one. And I find that the virtual ones tend to be, have their guard less, there's less of a guard there to be able to connect and to communicate.
If I could say something real quick, I grew
Yeah,
up
sure.
in a church where that's all you could do was wear masks because of the legalism. Everyone went around wearing masks saying, "We're great, everything's great, we're perfect Christians, don't kick us out." And that's how we lived. And that's a mask just as much as an avatar could be. And like they were saying, I see way more authenticity, and people get to the heart of the problems way faster in these virtual environments than they ever would. If you come from a Catholic background, think about the confessional booth. Why is it blocked off so you can't see the person? It's easier to talk that way. It's easier to confess that way. Same thing. It's just different platform.
Beautiful. Thank you, Pastor Lena, for that. Here's an image of Pastor Lena hanging out with some people at VR Church, connecting, communicating. And, you think about in the physical world, her body is very limited. She can move around, but it's very difficult as far as, she's not running around town, shopping and doing all that stuff. But in the metaverse, she inhabits a new body. She's able to run around just as much as she would like to in the physical world. So I think that's powerful.
But for the record, we must say Pastor Lena has the coolest hair, both IRL and in the metaverse.
That's true, right? Wait, let me go see. Oh yeah, no, it's on the video.
Mine's usually purple, but it grew out thanks to COVID.
Thanks to COVID, yeah. Real quick, a couple things. Pastor JPO, let me ask you this. When we were talking about like Web2 churches broadcasting their video into a Web3 experience, which is a great place to start, I don't think it's a great place to stay. And what I noticed about you guys, you're one of the first churches to move into the metaverse space a long time ago. And you went into avatar preaching when you could have easily streamed your services. Tell me why you did that.
Man, just one word: relationship. I just think, again, it's being there, being able to interact with them afterwards. We have a Q&A every service, every sermon. Afterwards, we do Q&A just to hear their thoughts, and it's amazing. People stick around for a long time in our services just to talk and just to be near the people. I still think the word of God is powerful when it's preached, even from a live stream where the preacher's, far away or, not present, if you will. But I do think it's even more powerful when there's the word of God in being communicated in the personality of the preacher with other personalities, being able to interact together. I just think it's so powerful. That's why we just said, no, we're not, we live stream, and we think it's great. But we could have just taken that video and put it into the church in alt space in the metaverse, but we just decided that wasn't going to be as intimate and relational. So I think it's been a good decision.
Yeah, I think it was really powerful that you guys did that. Very powerful. Pastor Zach couldn't be here today, but he's one of our pastors at VR Church, and he's talked about preaching in avatar form and just having that connection and cultivating that community with individuals, and is so important. And so we'll have a video of him, Pastor Zach. We'll cut out a portion of what he did before, and we can make that available to everyone. After the webinar, we'll have the show notes is going to be available for you. A ton of links, Cheddar's videos, links to our sponsors, a bunch of stuff for you to check out. Actually, Coco, do you mind grabbing the Google link for that so we can post that pretty soon so people can have the show notes? It should also be emailed, but I don't know if the email is quite set up yet for that. So now you're looking at
a PDF.
No, it's just a Google document or a Google link. It's not a file.
I'll set up a PDF.
Oh, beautiful. So you're looking at an image here of one of our churches, and then there's an image of a troll there. So it's just a quick thought. to think about. You guys are probably familiar with trolls in your chat, but your people are going to come and they're going to disrupt. I've had people come up to me in the middle of his sermon, give me the finger, tell me to, get out of here and all this stuff. And so there's some things you're just going to have to deal with when it comes to the metaverse. So making sure you have a good security team, people who can mute and block is going to be very important. Training them, here's one thing, trying to identify who is actually a troll. So what I mean by that is sometimes people would come up on the stage and at first we would start to kick them, but then we realized that people were just trying to figure out how to use their virtual reality. So they would accidentally teleport onto the stage. And so I would say, okay, security team, just give them a second to see if they back up. And sure enough, more often than not, you see them slowly like back up in the space. So that's just something you're going to learn and something that's just going to be a part of the metaverse experience. Trolls are the tomato throwers during John Wesley's days. Yeah, Eric on the chat for sure. Also, Coco, if you get a chance to push that poll for the community online, that would be awesome. So let's go.
That one was already pushed a while ago.
Oh, it was pushed a while ago. Great. So we've talked about exploration. We've talked about experimenting, and really this will be short. I know we're coming here to the end of the webinar, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on this. Just a few thoughts for you, and that's you're finally going to establish what you're going to do. And here is the point of the webinar where I want to encourage everybody. Man, there is so much ministry to be had. I'm talking small groups. We're talking metaverse campuses, youth experiences, metaverse ministry. Maybe just 2 or 3 of you are like, hey, let's band together and do, I don't know, a ministry in the metaverse. And so there is so much to be done. We are in the early stages of this Web3 metaverse experience. We don't even know what it's going to look like. The future is bright. The technology is getting more advanced. The avatars are becoming more realistic. The headsets are becoming lighter and cheaper. It's all of that. And I can't even imagine in what 5 years it's going to look like. But now is the time to get in. And now is the time to experiment, to explore, and to establish an experience, to invite people with you. So I would love to see from this webinar, small groups launched. I would love to see, if you're a church, if you have particularly if you have an online church, to start a metaverse campus. Man, that's a no-brainer. That's a natural evolution of church online. For you, for those involved in youth experiences, man, get into Rec Room, start having some youth nights, paintball, laser tag, bowling, create your own little small group area, hang out and chat, figure out the moderation tools, figure out how you can make your room private and invite only, all of that stuff. And I just really want to encourage you in these matters. Also, maybe for some of you, you're like, man, I'm not going to launch a group or a campus. There are some VR churches to join. You should definitely go in and hang out with some of these churches. Cornerstone VR. Stu is here from Lakeland VR. He was in the chat earlier. You definitely want to just go around and check out some churches and see, maybe how you can volunteer or be a part of that. So there is this, what's the word? The harvest is ripe, the laborers are few. And that is completely true when it comes to metaverse. I feel like, Pastor Jason, if you take the city of New York City, and can you imagine if there was only 2 or 3 churches in New York City? That would be like mind blowing. We wouldn't that would be a weird thing in our Christian culture, but that's what's happening in the metaverse. There's only like a handful, and there's going to be millions of people that are going to come into this space, and there's only a handful of churches. So I don't know. It's a thought I wanted to share with you guys about that.
That's good.
So last poll here, Coco, if you don't mind launching, is the type of metaverse ministry people are launching. We'll do a little poll review in a second, but we want to lower the landing gear, start to land the plane. So let's go into final thoughts from the panelists. Coco, we'll start with you, then Cheddars and Jason. Anything we talked about, anything we didn't talk about? Let's look at some questions people are asking. And so Coco, you are first.
So I've got a lot of things going on at once here. So final thoughts on this.
Let me go to Jate first. Yeah, what are you doing?
Did you mention religious trolls?
Briefly, we talked about the trolls a little bit.
Okay. I don't have any thoughts right now.
Cool. Pastor Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll just piggyback on what Coco said, because I don't know what else to talk about, but I would say, yeah, religious trolls are one of the hardest things in this space. Like, it's less often. I mean, I get people that are like, yeah, we don't like what you're doing and we want to, whatever. But I get probably more often than not, people that start doing this get sucked into debates with other people that have different backgrounds than them, that are Christian, have right heart and everything, and I mean, everybody's doing something different. Like the way that you're doing your ministry, even in VR, is very different than Jason is doing. I mean, I'm in Twitch, and so I get a lot more variety of different streamers that are all doing something different and all reaching different people for different ways. And I would just encourage anybody that's watching right now that says, that's looking at maybe what's already being done, maybe goes to DJ's church or to Jason's church or wherever, and says, this is cool, but why don't you guys do this? And if you have that feeling like, I want to, I wish you were doing it this way, I would just encourage you that there's a good chance that that's something God's put on your heart, to start a church, to start a virtual church. And it may not be that they need to change how they're doing it. It may be that you need to do your own, and that's God's giving you a vision for what your ministry can look like and how you could change it to be a little bit different. And when people don't see it that way, what usually ends up happening is people from the outside are very, very hard on people doing experimental, exploramental, I think is what the new word I'm going to start using. I like that one. Exploramental ministries, and it can be a lot harsher. It's easier for me to look at somebody from the outside and go, hey, you know what? That person's living in the world. That's just a reality to that person. It makes sense that they are attacking somebody that's doing something that they're not used to in a place that they're not used to seeing it. I understand that. What I don't understand is when somebody is supposedly a Christian that's in the body of believers, that is a part of the church that we all belong to, is the capital C church, who feels the need to just really attack people that are trying to do something different, trying to reach people that there's no other way that they would be reached. Like the people that we're talking to, like Alina is such a great example. Like there's just not another place that she was going to be reached, and we all have examples of people like this, and we're reaching people where they're at, in Twitch and in alt space and VR chat and places that just otherwise they're not going to come to your church. It's not a matter of having a good worship service or putting the best coffee in the front, like that they're not going into your church. And so, we're trying to go to where people are. And unfortunately, one of the biggest blocks in that is not the people on that platform. It's mostly other Christians that just really don't get it, I guess. And it's really, really hard. It is really hard. And so I would say, as both a caution for those that are going to be exploring these places, I would say that for you, and then also for those that are going to start in these places, just be ready for some criticism, because I think we talk about it in our private groups quite a lot. So, yeah.
Yes, I really appreciate that you went extensive on that, because going back to Pastor Coco, we talked about trolls. We didn't talk about religious trolls, so that's my bad. We did not talk about that until Jake did. And that is fascinating to watch, like to get trolled by religion, by Christians. That is an interesting thing and kind of perplexing. It's just not my template. This is not the way I do things. So, but it is something you may face getting into this space. You can face that. So, Cheddars, any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
Yeah, a few. So So the most asked question, at least at last webinar and directly afterwards, was how do I view the number of joins, unique visitors, and visitor retention in these platforms? And the biggest warning I can give to those who ask this kind of thing is that these platforms are not YouTube. The number of visitor hours does not lead to salvation. Both those trolls who got both the two trolls that I know who have like gotten saved, turn around and are just like basically discipling others, were like not found sermons helpful, but it was through the small interactions with individuals in and outside of church service that caused them to abandon the fun of self-indulgence for a life of walking a sacrificial life with Jesus. In a similar vein, a second comment that I could add is that the more numbers that you get can easily lead to overextension, where you experience like, oh, I want to reach out to the American Sign Language community in VR chat, or I want to try to, build a merchant space, an alt space VR for, that's hosted by churches, Those are great ideas, but I just warn you that the quality of discipleship leads to more fruit and leads to more market reach. Because people like, I don't know how to describe this well, but just like in a new geographical region, a convert of a local will make a much bigger impact than than you expect. A convert or a new person in a VR community will be able to reach other people in the VR community a lot better because they'll already have connections in different like unreached people groups, as some people like to refer to them, because a lot of these gamers are almost like unreached people groups. Third, although video media is helpful, treating VR as an overflow room where VR users watch a pastor on a screen can get boring for people that are accustomed to VR, because they're accustomed to be feeling present with the person they're talking to. And watching a pastor on a screen is the opposite of feeling present with the person. At the very least, have a QA session after a video if you want to treat VR like an overflow room, because at least you can answer people's questions. And people have all kinds of questions, at least in alt space VR. And then my last warning is that it's not the space that really, like, a space can add a lot to an experience, but that isn't what defines discipleship or defines evangelism. What defines it is your interaction with people. Both Cornerstone VR and VRMO Church started with just a basic template auto-provided by AltSpace VR, and then just moved from there. So don't be afraid if you don't have someone technical. Don't be afraid if, it's just a simple building that pre-made, Go and preach the gospel, share Jesus with people. So I beg of you, prioritize individualized discipleship to produce fruits of the Spirit in this platform. That already prioritizes in these platforms, that already prioritize seamless, individualized interaction over large reaching events. So, yeah.
Well, Cheddar's just dropped some knowledge right there.
Yeah,
that was
man.
some good stuff, Cheddar's.
Good.
It's over. We're done.
I know. That's good, man.
That's it. Thanks for coming. Yeah, that's great, Cheddar's. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, unfortunately, Pastor Jason, you have to come after Cheddar's now.
I know. Wow, that's a typical thing. I work with Cheddar's quite a bit. He's always got some good stuff to share. So I'm used to it. So no, just bottom line, I just want to encourage everybody to do what you did today, DJ, just explore, to get in there and see the opportunities to reach people. We all, I think, I would guess everyone on here has the same understanding of Jesus's vision and mission, is to go and to seek and to save that which is lost, to go to those that are hurting, the outcasts, the ones that are in darkness, and bring the light and the love of Christ to them. There's so many people. That's why when Jay had such a great thought on the religious trolls, and I've experienced that, as you guys know, and DJ, you have for sure. And it is pretty hurtful. But I just think maybe they just haven't seen it yet. They just don't understand. They haven't interacted with the person who's suicidal or been a Satanist their whole life because their whole family was into New Age and Wiccan, and they have a bad view of the church, and they would never come to a physical church because of all. They haven't been in those conversations and then seen God do an amazing work in those lives to save them and to bring them out of the darkness into his marvelous light. And when you see that, and then you see them just being discipled and then them discipling others. I mean, that's the whole agenda, right? I mean, that's what we're trying to do here. All of us, whether we're in the metaverse or not, and it can be done in the metaverse, and it is being done. And I just wish we could encourage people just to go and try it and see. Yeah, there's things that maybe are difficult to overcome for some, and that's fine. It's not Jate was right. It's not for everybody. Everyone has their calling and their mission. And I don't know. I don't know why it's, we used to be in the worship wars, and the worship wars are finally over. Thank you, God. And now I think I told you, DJ, we're in the metaverse melee.
The metaverse worship wars, the metaverse melee.
It's just now everyone's sort of like discernment ministers, they're coming out of the woodworks, and that's okay. I understand. We got to be careful. And there are questions that have popped up on here, as I think you're answering one about communion and all these other things. Those are big questions, and but they can be figured out and worked out together. So,
hey guys, panels, Coco, Pastor Jate, Cheddars, Pastor Jason, thank you so much. Thank you for everybody on the webinar. Actually, so this is like the official side of the webinar is done. Just the main content, and probably went a little longer than we wanted to, but we wanted to spend some time answering questions and diving in. I'm going to hang out here for, 20, 30 minutes. Coco, Jate, Cheddars, and Jason, you can feel free to stay. Feel free to go. I want to finish answering questions that we might have missed. I also have some epilogue thoughts. And we'll still record this, so if some of you have to go from the webinar, you can catch the epilogue later. But I wanted to set people free. I loved what someone said here in the chat. They said, let's see, Duncan Campbell said, thank you. I came here very skeptical, and you've helped me see how important this is for the kingdom of God. So I love that, Duncan. Thank you for sharing that. Really appreciate that. All right, my friends, nothing but love, grace, and peace. And until next time. All right, and let's see here. That was the end. We're going to continue here right into the epilogue. So let's see. Are we getting some questions being put in the chat? As we're looking at the questions and the epilogue post, maybe this should have been a part of the main content, but let's talk theology for a second. I have an interesting thought about that. But let's take a look at some questions. Puyan, what device should we buy? Quest 2. So if you're just popping in, full disclosure, we are sponsored by Meta, but we also do think the Meta Quest 2 is the best. So we've been saying that even before sponsorship. Let's see here. Very good. Pastor Coco, maybe you can queue up some questions if they haven't.
Getting ready. I had to stay on mute because we had another train coming by. So I love freight trains. They're my favorite.
All right, so here's this is epilogue. This is the post webinar. I'm going to sit back and relax here. Let's talk theology for a little bit. Okay. So here's a thought, and it's not about a chapter and verse. I think oftentimes in these conversations we are looking for a chapter and verse. And by the way, that's a great thing to do. But here's what I noticed. Pre-COVID, the evangelical attitude towards like the Metaverse Church was negative. And then once COVID hit, I saw theology evolve in real time. Like to go from online church is a bad thing, and within a 2 weeks time, theology morphed into online church is great. And so I've had, by the way, good churches in the area, great churches, great pastors who had an anti-online view. Within 2 weeks, were like, hey, come to church online. And they were calling it church, and they treated it like so. And so what that showed to me was that we would normally say that our theology would shape our experience. But COVID showed us that our experience is shaping our theology. It's kind of the other way around. And I think that's something we have a hard time admitting. But I think it's important to admit that the experience has shaped our theology. And here's the reason I bring that up in the theology aspect, is because if you're trying to convince a church leader chapter and verse, You're trying to go to your senior leadership and you're saying, hey, we want to do a metaverse campus. And they're like, what's the biblical basis for that, right? You'll find one that will convince them chapter and verse wise, and you should, definitely do that. But I think that once you put them in virtual reality, put them in a small group environment in VR where they're experiencing it, that's going to change their brain. Quick story. I was at a conference casting vision for VR Church. I was like, hey, VR Church, showing images on this Jumbotron screen behind me, this church conference. There was a pastor out in the audience, and he was like, man, this is unbiblical. This is wrong. We should not be doing this. This is years ago, pre-COVID. And then I didn't know that. I met him, and I said, hey, man, love to have you come to VR Church, present your ministry. He totally did it. He totally came. I gave him an extra VR headset, brought him up on stage. We were chatting, hanging around, talking. Afterwards, he took the headset off, and the first words out of his mouth was, I need to be involved in virtual reality ministry. Now, let me ask you this question. And then you guys can chime in, by the way, after my final thought here. Let me ask you this question. Did I convince him chapter and verse? No. Did I convince him with this Jumbotron amazing presentation that I had? No. It was when he put on the VR headset and he experienced it for himself. And after the experience, his theology shifted. So at the end of the day, you're trying to convince your church leaders to get, bought into the metaverse. I would propose to you, just based on my experience, and maybe you'll have a different experience, but I'm going to propose to you that chapter and verse, doing a presentation ain't going to do it. You got to get him in the Oculus headset. You got to take him to one of the VR churches. You got to get him in a small group. Light bulbs come on every time. What do you guys think?
Yeah, like what you're saying, DJ. I think the only thing I would probably, just from my viewpoint, probably would just say methodology changes. It can shift. For theology, for me, I think you're right. There isn't a chapter and verses as "Thus saith the Lord," go into the metaverse or not. So that's so right what you said. But I would just say, the message stays the same. The mission stays the same. The methodology it's just constantly changing, and I'm totally cool with that. I think good word.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like at the end of the day, when you look really, all right, so like VR Church and Cornerstone, we've been on some news articles and we're getting written about, but really when you zoom in, we're not really reinventing the wheel. Like it's still prayer. It's still, discipleship. It's still scripture. It's still connection. It's all those things, just in a different, method. We're not really, at the end of the day, we're not doing anything too crazy. Like we're not reinventing.
Yeah.
Like
I would also like to say that the Holy Spirit isn't stopped by a digital computer.
That's his limit. Thousands of years of church history, and then he's like,
this is too much.
So, oh man.
The tool metaverse, it's weird to people. That's all it is. It's just new. People don't understand it. That's all. I think as people get into it more, we're on the very front end of it, and eventually it'll be a like you said with the live stream after it'll be a nothing burger, right? People will be like, oh yeah, I got a metaverse campus, and it'll happen in 10 years probably. I don't know when it'll happen, but just right now people are like, oh, this is crazy. It's too weird. But the tool is weird. Admittedly, it's weird at first, but it's pretty amazing.
I think we might be missing
a question up here that's posted. Sorry.
Oh, cool. Oh, yes. Thank you for highlighting that. And also, we might be missing some questions because if you're typing the questions in the chat, we might miss it. But if you can type your question in the questions, tab next to chat, that we won't miss it as easily. So I'll try to go back to the chat and see. Let's see. I created a public event for making friends in VR and Altspace the past couple of weeks with quite a good turnout. Yes, I believe that. Any ideas or strategies on how to transition that into a Bible study or a church service? Well, that's a good question. I wonder, just my initial thought would be to say, hey, I'm creating another event. Like, I don't know if you'd want to do, I know it's not bait and switch, but for lack of better words, I'll just use that. Like, we don't want them to think in that maybe casual gathering that, oh, this whole time this was trying to be a Bible study, unless you sense that can transition to that. But I would maybe create another one and say, hey guys, in that casual gathering, I'm going to do a little kind of spiritual talk, Bible talk over here. You guys want to come chat with that? And so that's how I would do it. maybe somebody in the panel has some other thoughts there.
Let's see. Sorry, I was answering a question there. This is quite a multitasking experience.
No, I'm glad you guys are diving into the question. That's helpful. That's really good.
Let's see. Any idea strategy on how to transition into Bible study? Gosh, I like we did mention one of our good friends, Pastor Brock. Going in and just spending time with people and talking about big issues of life, and then that just sort of creates a community of friends that just talk about God together, even if they're far from God. They're interested. People are interested in God, and then eventually just turns into hey, let's do a Bible study. I think that's what he does, and I mean that's kind of a little bit what we did. I mean, probably not. He's probably more organically. We probably started more of a typical launch. I don't know what you guys did, DJ, but yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of an evolution. Our different churches had different kind of moments. They've all kind of went through the experiment, explore, establish. So some were more experimental than others. And those aren't hard lines. It's kind of like a gradual gradient through those, exploring, and then you're experimenting, and then you're establishing. For us, I don't know that I'd have to think about that. I guess we've had launch days. I think we're more into soft launches that lead into like a launch day. So
yeah, that's good. That's probably best for the metaverse.
Yeah. The 3 stages to breakthrough. Let's talk about this. Unless, by the way, I'm just moving forward. Unless Coco, Jade, and Cheddars, you have theology, something you want to chime in on, feel free just to interrupt.
Communion? Question mark.
Yes, sacraments. That's a big one.
That one's come up quite a bit. Here it comes.
Has it been coming up? I haven't seen it.
There one couple guys were asking about it.
Yeah, it's a couple that there. I think there's a question in here.
Sacraments. Should we do that? Let me see here. What do you do if you cry after being moved by God's grace while wearing a headset? Yeah, it might fog up a little bit. You're gonna need to pull it out and.
A little trickier than your normal eyeglasses, but it can be done.
By the way, they do make, I don't know, Alina, Coco, if you know, they have, and all of you guys, where you can get prescription lenses on your headset, so you don't have to wear your glasses and you guys know that? Okay.
Do you want me to go on about that? Because I can.
Oh, was it bad? Bad experience?
They're single vision, so people with progressives and bifocals can't use them, and they're very limited prescription range. So it's only for a certain amount of people. And if you're talking about expense, scalability, if you have to buy a new prescription lenses for everything every time you need a new prescription, because we do, then that's expensive. So that's my take on it. That's the short version.
Here's a question, and this can be like a rabbit hole, but let me just kind of do a surface talk on it. Is there a danger of spouses getting so involved in VR that they neglect their in real life relationships? Well, yes, but not because VR does anything different than other things that wouldn't, divide a spouse. Like I said, we could do a deep dive on that, but really at the surface level, I believe the average VR use time is like 35 to 45 minutes. Like it's really not an addictive technology per se. Now, like Jate's a power user. He could spend like hours in VR. So that's the exception to the rule. But for most people, after 45 minutes, it's like, oof, I need a little break. Like even after like an hour, like let's say I'm in VR church, like an hour and a half, hour 15. Like taking it off is like, ooh, okay.
Yeah, so it's my career. I can barely spend an hour in there.
Yeah.
At a time.
I don't think it's an addictive technology, and I don't think it's going to be. It's just you just put it in line with everything else that would, create relationship rifts.
I'm also single. We should probably clarify. So I can spend 9 hours in a VR headset, and it's good for me because I'm getting like it's interactive. Like I started playing Zenith, the like MMO, yesterday, and when I went to bed, I was like, oh my gosh, what did I do? I feel like I got beat up, and I was like, oh yeah, right. I've been moving around all day. I'm used to sitting down a lot. So yeah.
I would like to point out on that last one, that pastors already, if they're married, have this issue of ministry affecting their IRL relationships about the time they spend on their ministry versus their family. So there has to be a balance anyway, even with your IRL stuff. So it's going to be the same thing. You need to balance it.
I think underlying, yeah, that's a great point, Coco. And I think underlying that question, it maybe not for this particular one that asked the question, but I think a lot of people, I've had people ask this before, like there's a thought that somehow the metaverse, it's kind of like when Second Life came out, people were criticizing it because people were trying to find a second life. They were trying to like hide and try to create a whole other identity and reality for themselves and escape. And I think, yeah, if anybody's like doing that to a level that's unhealthy, that is dangerous for anyone. But yeah, ministry for it's basically if you're ministry focused, if you're trying to reach people, whether it's metaverse or IRL, I don't think there's any danger, particularly more dangerous in the metaverse than there would be in IRL. It's all about the heart. It's about what your fixation is and your motivation. So, yeah, I don't, and I know DJ, you've your family as well as my family have gotten involved quite a bit with the VR ministry. I know Carrie's in there quite a bit. I know Gwen has come into some life groups, and one of my kids was helped with the launch team. Another kid was a biblical counseling advocate. She's a teenager, older. So it's kind of a family deal. Like we're all excited about it. So it's actually been really positive for my family.
Yeah.
And if I can just chime in one bit, two things. One is very much like if your spouse is also into VR or your kids or your parents, that makes a wonderful time to bond together. I've taken my dad many times to different events in AltSpace VR, even took him to VR chat on a Christmas event journey 2 years ago. And so that was super fun. And it becomes, instead of going to the movie theaters to boringly sit next to each other for 2 hours, you go and spend 2 hours in virtual reality together. So it might not, there have been days where I've been wake up early on a Sunday at 8 a.m. and be in VR for 16 hours because I've been going to so many different churches and world hopping with people. But that because my dad was with me, because my friends were with me, it became something that complemented my life, not took away from it. The second thing I would like to point out is the more you get involved in ministry, surprisingly, the less time you seem to have for VR because you're spending more time talking to people on Discord. People start wanting to video chat you more. People start wanting you to build more things or set up worlds for people or set up the events. So you end up getting bogged down in a lot of this logistics. But yeah, just something to keep in mind as you get involved in ministry, that it's okay if you're spending less time in VR because you're having to handle the logistics of wiki articles or Discord or whatever.
It's good.
Yeah, and one more point that I would make is that just like we were saying, it's easier for people to open up in VR and in virtual spaces. If you have some kind of issue going on with your family, maybe you should hop in a VR headset and talk to each other. And
talk to each other. That's a good. I wonder if that'd be an interesting counseling technique, like having relationship problems. Let's get into some avatars, and I don't know. There's something to explore there.
I bet you.
Do you face? Let's see, a couple quick fire questions here. Do you face with any liability issues with VR Church or any ownership or copyright in VR space? Liability issues. I mean, I don't think so. As far as nobody can trip and fall and sue you. There's a lot of liability that's negated once you come to the metaverse. I'm sure there's going to be something that comes down the road. I just can't imagine what that is at the moment. Any ownership or copyright in your VR space? There can be. At one point, AltSpace removed some assets like trees or bushes because it belonged to a company, but then they let us use it again. And then we had to purchase licenses for some of our assets. But if you're using like a template, and by the way, I saw a template question in the questions. When you go to AltSpace, there's like a list. You can just pick one. You can just create it, go in there, explore it. So we don't run into a whole lot of liability. JPO, is there any liability legal aspects that you guys think through?
Yeah, I'm trying to just the same stuff that probably any church in IRL would face, right? So I don't think there's any. Yeah, I don't. Not the physical liability of the space, but like any kind of ministerial type of stuff that could happen. I guess those kinds of scenarios. I guess that would be similar. I mean, I don't think there's anything unique to Metaverse.
Correct.
Well, I have. There may be someone who falls during an experience and tries to sue you. for being in your event, but they're going to be about as successful as they have with anything else. Someone trying to sue you for playing a video game. It's
unlikely. Banks said, I read an article that people can binge for hours on console games. Yes, personal experience can attest. But that doesn't translate to VR. Yes, personal experience can attest. Yeah, I played a couple hours of some pretty motion. Was it Resident Evil? What was the other one? Song in the Smoke. A lot of movement, and man, after a couple hours, I was like,
yeah,
that was a lot, and that was probably too much.
It can.
It can.
I'm just going to tell you right now, VR. So the thing in VR that I've experienced, the hours can just melt away. And part of it is because there's no sun. Like the sun is the same spot no matter where. So when I'm playing an MMO, I'm just hanging out with people, talking or whatever, and my body's like, yeah, the sun's in the same spot. And then I go I'm seeing the sun. There it is. And I'm outside playing. We were playing last night. We were playing MMO. I was playing it with Phantom Mythos, and we were just like, yeah. What time is it? And we're like, oh my gosh, we've been in here for 5 hours already. Like, we gotta go to bed. It's dark outside, you just don't think about it. So yeah, I mean, it really can, but eventually you'll get tired.
That's
maybe.
Great. JPO, does CCLI cover worship in the metaverse? You guys
it should.
CCLI?
CCLI does. You probably also want to do CCLVI. I think that's the video version of it that they have as well. We do both because we do, as you guys I think do as well, sometimes do music videos.
Nicole said CVLI.
Yeah, CVLI. Yeah, thanks, Nicole. So yeah, that should cover you for everything. You can even show movies in your. We showed the what was the one The Chosen Christmas this year. We showed that at Christmas Eve or whatever, and anyway, so that covers you.
That's good.
At least as far as we're aware, no one's sent us a cease and desist letter yet. So,
do you need that for The Chosen?
Chosen, I think you didn't need it once it went on YouTube. Yeah, once it went on YouTube.
Free for all, right? Yeah.
Yeah, originally it was actually a paid thing, and so yeah, you would have had to use CVLI.
I believe it's fully free now. Yeah.
We use a lot of worship videos from Life Church's open resources, but we do get copyright strikes on Twitch and YouTube sometimes. Yeah. And so even though in the Life Church's open resources, they say you can use it for anything, we still get the strikes. So I don't know what to say about that.
Yes, I know ways around that.
Dispute them.
Yeah, you can dispute it. And also if you're doing Twitch, this probably won't matter for many people, but there's a thing called track 2 that you can make it so that music goes onto a separate track in OBS so that it doesn't get saved to your VODs. So you only have it when it's live, and then it's not there when you're not. And so that way it's not considered, whatever, a recording of it.
It's good to know.
Yeah, that's good stuff. What was I going to ask? Gerald. Was it Gerald asking? Get a Oculus for sale. Probably have to check out eBay.
Yeah,
we sold a couple on Facebook Marketplace. People bought them. The first Quests. But yeah, man, worth it. Definitely worth it. Let's see here. Oh, so let me just touch on this real quick. 3 stages of breakthrough: should, could, how. Really, I feel like I watch church leaders go through these 3 stages, and they get stuck probably in the middle between the first 2. So should is, and this is something that we should have talked about years ago, but I feel like that conversation is still happening. Should we even do stuff like Facebook or Instagram, Metaverse? Should we even do it? Is it even biblical? Some people don't think it is, and fair enough. Follow your conviction, but I think that conversation needs to move from should we, yes, to can we do certain things? Like, can we do baptisms? We should talk about here in a second. Sacraments, baptisms. Can we do discipleship classes? Can we do all that? For me, should, yes, can, yes, and really where you're going to start taking off, where VR Church really took off, is when we came to those first 2 things are yes. It's just a matter of how. How do we do these things? And that I feel like is the breakthrough that we had. And so when you come into it like we did, and it was like 2017 where we said, this is a real church, just like any other church out there. and all the functions of it. And when we adopted that attitude amongst our leadership, it really set the tone and set the soil for what we've become today. So yeah, just a little thought on should, can, how. Church leaders get stuck right around should, can, and how's a tough one to get to. But I think it's going to be critical even now with this COVID experience going into the metaverse to really shift those attitudes into how we do it. Oops, Alexa's trying to talk to me. Okay. Any thoughts on that? Here's a question and Jason, to get your budget talk ready. People are going to want to know I saw some budget questions.
Yeah.
But a question with sponsorship by Meta, are there any limited things you can preach? Is there any counsel for seeking sponsorship and things to consider to govern the relationship while still keeping the ministry focus? So the sponsorship with Meta for us, that relationship is solely limited to this webinar. So they're not like a supporter of VR Church beyond the webinar. Well, they are in the sense of like helping us with our Facebook page and connecting with them about things about the metaverse. But at a financial level, it's limited to this particular webinar.
Mm-hmm. We haven't been limited just for any of the platforms. Microsoft, whoever runs VR Chat, Rec Room guys. No one's had any. We've never had any issues with being able to preach what we believe. So I don't know if that's a concern or not, but it hasn't affected us. I don't know, DJ. I don't think it's affected you either. So
no, the rumor that I heard, purely a rumor, was that in Rec Room, one ministry got, I think, banned.
I heard about that. Yeah,
or shut down. I don't know the keywords now. The reason I think it was like that because they're very protective of that younger crowd, so they're going to probably remove words. I don't even know what words it was. Let me just assume maybe it was words like hell or I don't know. And I'm just, but again, rumor, and I don't know exactly what the words were, but I don't think it was a malicious anti-Christian thing as much as it was these words that are being printed on events. And some keywords that they would block. So
I know Roblox blocks a lot of stuff. Like I know that's kind of
Roblox,
like
right?
Ironic.
It's kind of a thing. But just like Roblox and probably anything that's in that same, but the word Jesus is blocked on Roblox, as is Christian and Muslim and many others. So you cannot type those words, but you can't type a lot of words. So and Twitch has kind of a weird situation where it's every individual streamer decides what is or isn't allowed inside their stream, but the defaults, there's a very wide variety of things that it will default block that you have to go in and allow every time that you see one that you don't like block. So Jesus at one point was blocked, Christian was blocked from my channel in Twitch, and I had to go in and say, no, I want to allow these words, obviously. But even like he and her were both blocked because they're gender terms. So like it can get pretty weird depending on the platform, but that's a little different than being like, you're preaching the gospel, get out of here.
Right. Yeah. That's what I was saying. It's not an anti-Christian thing that I perceived. It was just more about keywords to protect the younger audience, like in Roblox. So,
but down the road, it'll be maybe something in the future, DJ. We kind of, as things grow and expand, maybe there'll be more metaverse platforms that are maybe disassociated from the big tech companies. And not that we haven't had any problem with the tech companies, but maybe down the road it'd be kind of cool. Maybe somebody listening right now of the 75 people that are on, maybe one of those are going to be the people that build some really neat platforms for churches. Blockchain stuff. Yeah,
absolutely. Pamela, to go back to your question, I think I closed it, but any counsel for seeking sponsorship, things to consider. So, I mean, I'm probably not the best one to talk to because I've had a really hard time fundraising within let's just say, for lack of better words, the evangelical church. You can imagine, like starting in 2016, my wife and I thinking, hey, we're going to go raise support, in which we did. We hit the road in 2017. We went to go raise support for a couple of years and really came to the conclusion, like, whoa, I don't think the church is ready for this. Like, it was a kind of a stark awakening. Quick story. We were, the first clip we played was the Today Show. And we were on the Megyn Kelly show And before the show aired, this producer said, in passing, wasn't even like an official conversation, in passing said, hey, DJ, I don't think that the church is going to support you. And it was the first time someone had ever said that to me. And I don't know if she was like, Christian of faith, spirituality or whatever. Because in Bible college, they told us, hey, you're going to get funded, your church plants are get funded by churches. And when we came to the realization, she said that, we had a couple other people follow up with that, and we just came like, boom. So I'm not trying to discourage you in that aspect. I'm just trying to set like a realistic attitude going into church leaders, going into denominational leaders. There's going to be a reluctance and a hesitance, even with COVID and even with this metaverse thing that's happening. I still sense a kicking and screaming going into this. Now, be blessed, be encouraged. I hope the conversations you have are very fruitful. But I'm also giving you years of experience of running into attitudes with church leaders about this whole metaverse thing. So maybe somebody could give more of a positive take. I feel like I'm being negative there. I don't feel negative about it. I guess maybe I wasn't trying.
Well, you were on the cutting front edge though, and that's hard. I mean, I think it'll get easier and easier. People are gonna, it's gonna. I think some of the big issues. Maybe we should just, I don't know if we want to address the communion baptism, because that's where people really start to go south with the whole thing. Because obviously you can do a lot of people are not opposed to doing like just parachurch type of ministry, like evangelism or just meeting with people one-on-one. People are like, oh yeah, okay, I can kind of get on board with that. But once we start saying this is a church, it seems like that's when everyone goes fisticuffs, right? And I think, but I just my view, and I'd love to hear DJ and you guys on this. But I was like, yeah, we could do a parachurch ministry. But to me, it was like I wanted to have all these folks that are so disconnected from the church or have a bad memeified view of the church out there in the metaverse to see the beauty of the church. Because they're really a parachurch organization, a ministry is awesome, but it's 1 degree removed from the beauty of the bride of Christ. And so we wanted to have a church in the metaverse for them to see it. And maybe they stay there. Maybe they decide they want to go back into and see some in real life churches because of their good experience they had in the Metaverse Church. But in order to be a real church, it requires a number of things, like you talked about, DJ, like worship and the word and prayer, and then the ordinances, the sacraments that I would guess everybody here is on the same board. We all believe in baptism and communion. So I think that's where the whole debate starts to really heat up. But you and I, DJ, have decided, from our background and perspective theologically, that, these things are appropriate to do in the metaverse. Maybe you want to speak to that, because I think based on, again, it comes down to people's backgrounds and what they can, in good conscience, sustain based on their theology, and that's totally appropriate. Like we talked about one of our buddies who's he's not able to do baptisms because of his theology. That's fine. Anyway, what do you think, DJ?
Yeah,
no, I think we should dive into that. Actually, let's do it. Let me just
talk. Can I say one thing real quick? DJ, you keep picking all the new questions when there's a bunch of older questions in there that people have been waiting for, and they're in order from newest to oldest of unanswered. So I wanted to say that, and I also wanted to say we probably need to cut off new questions because time is getting long.
Yeah. I don't see. When I look at it. Oh, I see. There's some at the bottom that aren't answered. I see. All right. Yeah, I'm only seeing the new ones come up. Yep. Okay, let's hit like 2 minutes on budget. We started it with just no money, and obviously we paid for a computer and virtual reality, but that was more for the family. We weren't thinking VR church ministry, so in one sense, we had it. But even back then, it was quite expensive, a couple $1,000s to get into VR. Now it's like a couple hundred, $200-300. So it's definitely a different thing. But I guess, Jason, that's not helpful. Maybe it's helpful for you as like a physical church pastor. They want to launch a church in the metaverse. You could do it with nothing. But what's like realistically budget-wise? What are we looking at?
Well, just to start, like we talked $300 for the Quest headset. Somebody had asked, what's the minimal? Well, it could be, if you already have, probably most people on here obviously have a computer most likely, and they have an internet connection. So they're already paying for that. That's, so they could do a 2D launch of a church or whatever for free. on these platforms. But I would, of course, I think you guys would recommend as well getting the headset. So $300, literally you could start a church, which is ridiculous when you think about what it costs, the tens of thousands to start a physical church plant. And it's crazy. So yeah, there are other costs that maybe come if you want to build if you don't have a world builder on, somebody can volunteer that. You want to probably pay somebody to build a personal customized space, perhaps. That might cost some money. And then maybe if you decide to start staffing your Metaverse Church as we did, that costs as well for personnel. But really, to start off, $300.
Yeah. Can you imagine church planting history? $300 a church plant.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a how to talk about VR with your church leadership for dummies book? No, there isn't. We should write one, right?
Yeah, there needs to be one. Yeah.
That totally needs to happen.
know,
Cook,
right?
if you see like a pertinent question that I missed, because I'm only at the top, maybe you should push one of those.
Just one.
Something weird's happening with the questions. All of a sudden, I can't push them anymore. I don't know.
Order by upvotes.
Oh,
weird. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, 1 second. I just wanted to mention that a good place to refer people to would be the Starting a Church page, which at least has the YouTube videos of the previous webinar, so that you could at least show that to inspire current church leaders about like what's already going on in the metaverse as far as virtual reality and stuff. And hopefully we'll be able to, under day 1 of Explore section, make like a testimonies page talking about like how people have been impacted in VR. Maybe that would be helpful for that, if I can grab Twitch, because I know that like Cornerstone VR has had like testimony days on Twitch about like how people have been impacted in VR. So if we'll be able to consolidate that kind of stuff there too.
Excellent. As a follow-up, are there any safeguards for age groups, restrictions, or blocking on these platforms, like you see on social media, where you can land in FB jail, account shut down? I guess it depends what you're like, exactly what you mean, but there are moderation controls, like safeguards to block, to mute. I do think Rec Room has a junior account where it blocks communication for those who don't have a junior account. I'd have to confirm that, but I believe there's a setup that way. So there are safeguards in place, and it's just a matter of being able to learn to use those tools. The top voted question, and I know we want to hit VR baptisms real quick, but the top upvote was, is it possible to establish a meta church with a small fund? And so, yeah, like Pastor Jason was saying, I think addresses that.
Yeah, I mean, just to encourage you, whoever's left on here that's in a small church. I mean, we are a small church in Northern California, and now we've been able to do 2 campuses, and a third one here in Rec Room, hopefully starting, for very little money and reaching people we never thought we'd reach. So just encouragement. You don't have to have mega church budgets.
Right.
I know we've said it already, but just don't worry about the money.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. All right. Final topic. Let's see here. Let me just double check a couple things. Final topic, Holy Communion. All right. So we got baptisms. We've got communion. That's been a hot topic with VR Church. I'm sure with you, Jason, maybe you had some uproar. Maybe there's something to that. But let me back up for us. Like what we did, it was early on, way before the pandemic, way before VR Church was like, known in different media outlets. And we're a small church, just a handful of us. And as we were doing the life of the church, there came this realization, like, man, we should do baptisms because people are growing in their faith. There's transformation happening. Let's celebrate this sacrament in virtual reality. So we got the elders together, right? So it wasn't just me saying, hey, let's do it. Got the elders together, and we just started talking about it. So what do you guys think about VR baptisms? What do we need to chew on about it? And so obviously, when we bring up baptisms, there's all different types of views, infant baptisms, baptism this, baptism that. And so for us, where we land is very on this side that baptism is symbolic. And that's really the core belief for us. Some people have a more literalist view, but for us, it's more of symbolic, a demonstration, a declaration. And so in the spirit of that symbolism, we said, let's do virtual reality baptisms. And so that's what led to what we do today. And we've baptized people. Some people say, well, you need to baptize in water. Well, we're baptizing him in water that's ones and zeros, not H2O, but it is virtual water. And for us, the experience just feels very real. Like going under the water and coming out is just a unique experience. But that's just me. JPO, what do you think? How has it been done for you? And what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I mean, you basically explained it well. That's kind of how we view it. It definitely has been amazing to see the impact on people, because again, baptism to us, it needs to be visually perceived. It needs to be a public kind of experience in the community, and that's what it is. The candidate gets to go, and this is kind of cool. In IRL baptisms, you can only go down for a couple seconds, right? You want to hold somebody on too long, or you will enter them directly into heaven on their baptism day. But in VR, they can go. We have a lake that Cheddar's made for us with a waterfall, and they can go under the water, and they can actually, as I'm talking about, being buried with Christ in baptism. Your old identity is put to death, crucified with Christ, and they're actually under the water, and you feel, you can see the visual symbol of being buried under that water. And then when I have them come out, they come out and everyone's there. The community is watching. It's powerful, and it really has deeply impacted people's lives. And people have come to faith because they've observed somebody else's testimony. Because like you guys do, we read the testimony, then they do the baptism, and people have been impacted by that. So the Spirit's work there has been clear and evident, palpable, even though we don't use H2O in our VR campuses. I think you're right, though. It's symbolic for us. So
yeah. Now I was trying to bring this up. I don't know if it's gonna. I'll turn down the volume. I don't know if it turns down the volume for everybody. But this was me kind of before we did baptisms, walking around VR chat, checking out some different worlds, and look how real the water looks. Like, I know maybe it doesn't translate. I don't know if there's sound. I've muted mine, so if you guys can't hear me, make sure to mute you should be able to mute it. But I could also pause it. And so look how real the water looks. Like, even on a 2D image, maybe you're like, oh, it's not that impressive. But man, in VR, like I was like moving my finger around the water and it was just kind of rippling along with me. And it's only going to get more immersive, more sophisticated. So yeah, it's pretty compelling and it feels very real. But yeah, I don't know. Any other thoughts? We should probably wrap it up. I think you're a couple hours into this. So
I just wanted to show, since I'm in alt space, this is the communion and cups and wafers that are used typically at Cornerstone VR. So you can see, user can pick up one with one hand, pick up the other with the other hand, go back to their seats, and then consume the elements by just bringing it to their mouth, and then the item then disappears through the ground. Because currently, scripting it being consumed is not available yet. And then the same with like taking the wine, and then it just and what's really cool is that they pop up back where they originally spawned, and so there's no cleanup team for communion, which is really nice.
No cleanup team, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
And I quickly answered last time as well. It's like it is with online church too. If your theology is they must do the actual physical act of doing this, just do it like we do with online church. Make sure that the families at home have their stuff ready, and you can do it together.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's good. Okay, my friends. So yeah, thanks for hanging out. I'm going to test out this show notes. So I'm going to push that to the screen. You guys should see that in just a second. I know Coco put that in the chat as well, but I also want to see if I can push it. Yeah, thanks so much. I thought it was a great webinar. Panelists, thanks so much for helping out and all your wisdom and expertise in this matter. Yeah, and I think it's going to help some people. I saw someone in the chat saying, they hope to launch a Korean Metaverse Church, and I think that's beautiful.
That is.
Yeah, beautiful.
It says access denied for the show notes.
No.
On Google Drive.
Yeah, I made a PDF, and I would just say push the PDF.
Okay.
Because because that's a limited access, because that's a working doc. That's why I didn't want to share it.
Published document, but it should be restrict access to the following, huh?
Now, while that's being debugged, I'll just mention that for people who like asking questions in chat areas, an option is the Metaverse Ministry Network Discord, shortened as MVMN. There's a bunch of people there who are really experts in all kinds of different platforms. We've got people from Minecraft. We've got people from AltSpace VR, Rec Room, VR Chat, who are willing and ready to help answer questions. There's a whole channel called Any Questions. You can ask your questions there. And what's really cool about how we're doing it is we're hoping to answer the questions via making wiki articles. So that way, once a question's answered thoroughly once, we can just keep sending those wiki articles to people in the future. Once again, just the Discord link is on the main page of Metaverse Ministry Network Wiki, which I put the link in the chats.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody, so much. Nothing but love. I hope you're doing well. Hope we launched some Metaverse ministries from this, and I'm really excited about. I would love to hear from you guys. And I think there's some contact information on the show notes. If not, I don't know, maybe I'll send that on an email. But thanks so much, everybody. So good to see you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
bye, Jeremy. Bye, Gerald. Wham, wham. See you later. Pamela, bye-bye. Alan, adios. Laura. Great week. See you, Pastor Coco. Pastor Jacob. Cheddars is dancing. Carol! What's up, Carol? Bye, everybody. Chat for Green, buddy. See ya. Chat for Green is a Metaverse citizen. A citizen of the Metaverse. What are you streaming today, Jake? Any good streams coming up?
I'm gonna do the DLC of Outer Wilds.
Oh, there's a DLC. Wow.
Yeah.
I never finished it, but it was fantastic.
Man, it's one of my top games of all time.
That was a great one.
Love that game. I can't wait for the DLC.
I should get back into it.
Yeah,
find out what happened.
Oh yeah. That's why it's so good. It's a puzzle. The mystery, the payoff is really worth it.
I'm just gonna finish listening to this song.
Yeah, good jam. Dude, Zenith.
It's good.
Played it yesterday. Yeah.
I like it.
I'm level 8, I think.
You know what I love about it? Okay, it's not the Final Fantasy Warcraft equivalent.
No, of course not.
But it feels really good. Open world, climbing, flying, and then like in MMOs on 2D, it's like go fetch 5 of these. It's so boring, right?
Yeah.
But in VR it works. It's like, yeah, I'll go over there and fetch 5 of those. Maybe I was talking about this when we did the raid.
Yeah. It works till my back starts to hurt, and then I'm like, don't make me go over there. I want to just sit down. Where's the sit down quest?
The cooking's fun too. I haven't gotten into that much though.
Yeah.
All right, my friends.
Cool.
I am out of here. Cutting the stream. Adios.
Right.
See you later.
Will there be a way to access those questions later so I can slowly start answering them?
That's a great question. You should ask a question to
ask it in questions.
Ask it in questions.
We'll get to that.
Copy and paste.
I don't know.
That's what I was trying to do, but it doesn't really seem to copy and paste the whole thing. It only copies and pastes the visualized ones.
I like this format better, by the way. This live
Yeah,
I do
it's
like
definitely
much better. Much better.
Except poor Coldest couldn't
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
weird.
Oh,
yeah.
Octane couldn't get in either.
But
But
he didn't.
because I sent them moderation emails and they both couldn't get in. Like my moderators couldn't get in. Which is super
Yeah,
annoying.
that's why I was so busy. And then you're asking me to give comments. I'm like,
Exactly. Well, like Jason, me and Coco and a little bit of Jake too was doing an amazing job answering all these questions. I really appreciated all the help.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just was
If y'all
looking
want to
for one.
talk about post party, we can go over to Discord
Yeah.
and end this event.
I have
Thanks.
Hey, Carrie.
Oh, hey, Carrie.
Listening to the whole thing while driving. What's
Hi,
up?
Carrie.
All right, friends. Okay, I'm going to head out and I'm going to end the stream right about now.